All right, everybody, welcome back. We're live, and so today we're gonna start on a whole new franchise to talk about. um, we're gonna talk about the Lord of the Rings films. So we're gonna start by talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy of films, directed by Peter Jackson, and yeah, so those films, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. And then we'll talk about the Hobbit films that were also directed by Peter Jackson. But there's a whole story around that too about
Hmm.
about what was going to happen there. All right, so why don't we start by talking about sort of our first experiences with this film. When we first saw it and like what our first experience was like with it. Did you like it from the start? Things like that. So yeah, what was your first experience with the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
I had never heard of them before. I was 11 when this movie came out. And my uncle was like, came to my parents, was like, hey, so these movies are coming out, like Lord of the Rings, like, I want to take the kids to go see them. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, get them out of the house. So he took us to go see them at this little movie theater and in a mall. And we saw the Fellowship of the Ring, and it blew my mind. And it was one of the greatest things I had ever seen. Ellie, stop looking. And I fell in love with it. I just thought it was great. I had a mad crush on Legolas, just like everybody
Yeah,
did.
everybody. Yeah.
I have since transitioned to more of an Aragorn, but like literally, Orlando Bloom is the most gorgeous thing I had ever seen at that point in my life. I was like, oh wow. Yeah. But yeah, I have since transitioned my taste. No offense, Legolas. But yeah, I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. I felt so many things while watching this movie. Some stuff that probably went over my head a little bit, and as time goes on, you like learn more and more about it. And actually, I think my older sister Reed had read the books or had started reading them because she was like 2 or 3 years older than me. Um, so she kind of like started filling me in on certain things again that I did not retain at all. I just wanted to watch another movie.
Yeah.
And then every time they came out, we went and saw them. So that was it.
Yeah.
Love at first sight.
Yeah, so I kind of had a similar thing. I wasn't really familiar with the Lord of the Rings stuff at all. I had a friend who was way into like that kind of stuff. He told me to read Harry Potter. He told me to play Magic the Gathering, which I ended up playing. He told me we ended up playing D&D together. And he was like, "Oh man, there's this movie Lord of the Rings. We have to see it." So I was like, "Okay." And so I ended up. It was like me, him, and my mom went to see it. And it's definitely like one of those like there's nothing more interesting than like a story you're not expecting to affect you in a way,
Mm.
uh, hitting you because you're
Yeah.
like, whoa,
Because I
hold
had
on,
no
like,
idea.
yeah,
I knew
no idea.
nothing about it going in. Absolutely nothing. And
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things I like still doing sometimes with certain movies. That's why I don't always read synopsises when I like, or summaries when I go to watch a movie during September Fest. I'm just like, I just want to go into it not knowing. And
yeah.
it's hard to avoid that nowadays. It's really hard.
It is, but like, so the last thing that really hit me like that for me was like Blade Runner 2049, personally, because like that was a film I was like I was very skeptical. Like that was the thing for me about the film. I was like, this film is not going to work. Like you're making a sequel to like one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time. That seems like a daunting task. But I saw it anyway because I'm into the world, and I was like, this film's unfucking believable. Like that film was really good. Um, and so that was sort of more like overcoming my negative expectations. Whereas this film, I had none. I had no expectations,
Yeah,
and so I had no.
exactly.
And it's just like to me, the thing that really kind of got me is like the prologue is so good and
Yes.
so efficient at like telling you everything and making you feel everything, because you're like, oh, there's these powerful beings, and then there's these human beings and elves, and they're fighting wars, and there's all this magic, and you get it.
Yeah.
That
And you
first
feel the
whatever it is,
magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
the 10 minutes you get it, you understand like this is a very different world, a
Yes.
very different history. Um, but you want to know more, and you want to like see and feel more of what's going to happen in the story. So yeah, similar sort of experience. Had no idea, and I was probably like 13 at the time. I was, seventh, eighth grade, something like that. And yeah, I mean, film, like, I feel like once people saw the films, like, it just took off. I mean, it
Oh yeah,
became
for
like
sure.
the biggest thing and the most anticipated thing every year. It
Yeah.
was like for everybody, it was like a universally acclaimed film.
Yes.
Basically every type of person knew and watched the films. Like even people you wouldn't really think would be watching or be into the Lord of the Rings, they still like consumed it. And so that was really that's another kind of like amazing thing about the film, is that it was so widely well regarded across
And yeah,
every demographic.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I even remember like some of my brother's friends, like my older brother's friends. Because if I was 11 in 2001, my oldest brother would have been 21, 22. And even then, I remember them coming over to the house and being like, yeah, we're going to go see that stupid Lord of the Rings movie. It's probably not going to be very good. And then, like, over the years, like, dude, we just saw The Return of the King and it was great. And I'm just like, you fucking asshole. You knew it was good the whole time. You just didn't want to admit that it was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, again, it's goofy. Like, there are, hobbits that have hairy hobbit feet who walk around barefoot all the time.
Yeah, it's goofy, but it also just goes to set it apart from everything else. And like, yeah, they're small little people, but they got really fucking hairy feet. But it's just kind of like, okay, then it's just showing you like the differences in the species and everything like that. And that's just great. That's great. I love it.
Yeah. So I just want to, as briefly as possible, just sort of talk about like what led up to this film actually being made, because that story in and of itself is kind of crazy. So just to kind of give an overview. So there have been a lot of different attempts to make the Lord of the Rings films. I believe there was a time in like the 60s where they wanted like Stanley Kubrick to direct it, with like the four people would have been the Beatles. So the four hobbits would have been, I'm serious, that was a real thing. The four hobbits would have been the Beatles. And it would have been like Paul McCartney as Frodo and John Lennon is Sam. I'm serious. I am not joking.
I cannot see John Lennon being anything close to being Sam. Are you fucking kidding me right now?
No.
Like,
no.
I think I went on a John Lennon tangent last time we streamed, and I was just like, hey, I can't fucking stand it. Like, oh
yeah.
my god.
But that just kind of just like keeps in mind like what they've tried to do.
If fucking John had been Sam, he would have abandoned like Paul halfway through the fucking like oh, I have to go into a fucking volcano. You're on your own, Paul.
Yeah. And we would have tried to take credit for like the whole situation. like no, I destroyed the ring. Like, you may have carried the ring, but I actually destroyed the ring.
All you had was yesterday, Paul. That's all you fucking had. Bitch.
Oh my god, dude.
Okay, yeah, but I'm glad that didn't happen. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. So the first thing that they did was there was an animated film. There's a number of animated films at first. So like
but they didn't even scared the shit out of me. I remember.
They didn't even. So like, keep in mind, this is like the 60s. The idea of making a live action version of this film was like basically impossible. It was actually impossible. No amount of money could have actually done it. So at first everything was like animated. So there was like a 11-minute animated short film that came out in 1967 of The Hobbit. Then they did this really interesting thing. It was like a Swedish version in 1971. It was like a live action / animated. So they kind of rotoscoped the actors into like some animation cells.
Okay.
So then in 1977 there was a TV special of The Hobbit, and then The Lord of the Rings was done in 1978, the next year. And so that film was like basically a compromise between the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. So it kind of covered both.
Yeah, I think that's the one I saw that scared me.
Yeah,
after I'd already seen Fellowship.
It didn't work. Like, none of these things really worked well. They had some cool ideas in them.
I remember liking the animation style because I thought it was really different. But I just remember that Gollum scaring the ever-loving piss out of me. Like, I can't watch this. I can't. Like, this is not what I just watched, because we rented it from the fucking library because it's all I had. And I was like, that's not what I just saw. So.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of scary shit when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I think that guy's name was Bakshi, the guy who did the Lord of the Rings. That one had a lot of stuff that would end up actually being in the in Peter Jackson's film. So Peter Jackson saw that film when he was a kid, when he was a teenager, and he has some interesting quotes. He was like, "Yeah, it was really kind of cool at first, and then the story kind of goes off a cliff, but it made me interested in reading the book." And so from that, he read the book, and he kind of got interested in sort of the Lord of the Rings. That's sort of his initial sort of interest in it. So then in 1995, him and Fran Walsh, they finished this film, The Frighteners, which was this kind of wacky comedy horror.
Oh, is that with Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, with Michael J. Fox. Yeah, he directed that. Yeah.
That's awesome, because I actually remember liking that movie when I was younger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in like 2 decades, but...
Yeah, it had all these wacky effects and stuff. And so they had done that, and they were like, okay, let's try and make a fantasy film so we can, because they, basically they had the company Weta, and they got to try and find new projects for them to be involved in. So this part of our story, unfortunately, involves Harvey Weinstein. So at the time, Peter Jackson has done some weird movies. I forget what it's called, but he did this movie. It's like a hard R-rated movie with puppets. A super raunchy R-rated film with puppets and other horror. So he's done some weird shit. Okay.
It's funny. I can't say that. I didn't even know that he had done The Frighteners, and I know I had seen that movie. I don't think I've seen many other Peter Jackson movies now that I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I bring that up because, like, this is not a prestige director. He's not like Steven Spielberg or, James Cameron. He's not seen in that light at the time before he made Lord of the Rings. He's just seen as some weird dude who's made some really kind of strange films.
But he has a vision. Has the vision.
Yeah. He's from New Zealand, and that actually helps him too, as we'll come to later. So he did. I forget what year it was. He did this film, Heavenly Creatures, which is like a drama. It was like the first kind of like turn to like making, non-wacky, goofy, campy films. And that had, I forget what her name was in it. Anyway, so he did that with Miramax. And because of that, he was in a contract with Miramax. So he was sort of contractually obligated to bring his pitch for the Lord of the Rings to them.
Okay.
And so he did that. And so he was like, hey, there's this guy who has the rights to the Lord of the Rings. We should sort of get it, and we should make the Lord of the Rings films in New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand. The government can give us some really good tax incentives, blah, 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 blah. And so he pitched it to them as 2 films, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And we'll shoot them back to back, 6 months apart from release. And they were like, okay, I think we can maybe have that happen. So the Weinstein Company, they start negotiating with the guy. It's like Xanax. He was the guy who owned the rights. Like basically the rights got sold because J.R.R. Tolkien had like a tax bill he had to pay. So he had to sell the rights to the Lord of the Rings films in order to pay off his tax bill. And that's sort of a part of why we get any Lord of the Rings films, actually. And so those negotiations between the person who owned the film rights and the Weinstein Company kind of got elongated. So basically, Peter Jackson sort of like, he was like, okay, I'm just going to do something else in the meantime. So in 1995, he signs on with Universal to do a remake of King Kong. But that fell through. So that Universal deal fell through in like 1997. They canceled it. And so then the 2 of them, Jackson and Walsh, go back to trying to figure out how to resolve these rights issues with the Lord of the Rings. So they spend like 6 weeks doing that. And then finally that gets resolved. And so they then go into the process of like writing a script for the film. So Jackson and Walsh and this other guy, Costa Boats, they write a scene-by-scene analysis of the entire book. in which they then rearranged that whole thing into a treatment for the.
That just gave me a headache.
I know.
God.
Doesn't that just sound mind-boggling to you?
Fuck, I've been spending the last 9 years trying to world build my own fantasy shit, man. That just fucking killed me. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Also, I need to correct myself. I have seen King Kong. So that's another Peter Jackson movie that I forgot I seen. But that is a lot. Wow.
Yeah. And again, this is interesting too, because this isn't the films that we ended up getting.
I'm sure it's nothing close to it.
Yeah, it's nothing close. Yeah. So their treatment for this version of the film divided it into two parts. So there was the Fellowship of the Ring, which basically, again, sort of like that animated film, would cover the Fellowship of the Ring and parts of Two Towers. And then the second one would be called the War of the Ring. And so the first film would have opened immediately with the Battle of the Last Alliance, sort of like what we get at the beginning of this film. And then it would end with Saruman's death. And then Gandalf and Pippin going to Minas Tirith with the Palantir. And the second film would open in a battle and would end with Frodo sailing west. And it would also, again, these are some ideas that ended up not making it. There would be a more pronounced romantic love triangle between Arwen and Éowyn with Aragorn.
Don't do that.
Including a scene where Aragorn and Éowyn are asleep in each other's arms. And so
wait a minute. Are we talking they're banging it out, or they're just cuddling? There was a lot of cuddling.
There was one with a sex scene, yeah.
Shit, my uncle would have felt super uncomfortable if that had happened. Dude, I saw 300 with my mom. I don't need to see a sex scene with my uncle in the same room. That's not cool. Wow, I'm actually really grateful that didn't happen.
Yeah. So they then presented this treatment to Harvey and Bob Weinstein, and they agreed that there would be two films with a total budget of $75 million.
No.
Exactly.
That's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
Oh my god.
So this Weinstein thing
was $100 million, I think. Are you serious?
Yeah. This Weinstein thing was dead from the start. The Weinstein version was never gonna work. And it's gonna get worse. Just to kind of it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So then they had all these casting discussions. Miramax wanted to Americanize the project. So they wanted Daniel Day-Lewis for Aragorn, which would have been
I'm fine with that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm
actually okay with that. Because I've always compared Viggo Mortensen and Daniel Day-Lewis together, so it's they're kind of interchangeable for me.
You know what he would have really been like too? He would have been like what's his name?
He would have been Hawkeye.
It would have been like Hawkeye.
Just we just need you to be Hawkeye again.
It would have totally been like Hawkeye. So, and they wanted Morgan Freeman for Gandalf, which would have been interesting.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. I don't hate it. Yeah. Would have been interesting.
He literally played God in a movie. If he wants to be Gandalf, I'm cool with that.
Harvey also dissuaded considering Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd, whom Harvey had secretly harassed.
I was actually just gonna I wonder why he wanted that.
Yeah, exactly. So then Jackson compiled his own list, and so it had Ian Holm as Bilbo and Kate Blanchett as Galadriel. Those are things that he ended up getting, which is good. Meanwhile, so Weta Digital was developing all the new software they would need to like the massive software, which is what they would use to create these giant battle scenes. It was really cool because basically they I mean, for people my age who remember playing Age of Empires, it's basically a software where they create a bunch of soldiers and have them fight each other as independent little AI things. So you don't have to micromanage all this. The software just creates these armies and they fight for them. So then Jackson and Walsh started writing the screenplays in mid '97, and then Philippa Boyens, something like that, also got involved because she was a big fan of the books. So it took them 14 months to write 2 scripts.
I mean, given the source material, wow. Yeah. That makes sense to me. I mean, if you're going through the source material and you're going through it bit by bit, scene by scene, Yeah, that's an undertaking.
It's so daunting. And they again, we're not even to the point where we get to what we actually got.
Mm-hmm.
So those scripts were 147 pages and 144 pages respectively. The Lord of the Rings movies we got are a lot longer than that. I'll just say that right now. So, yeah, and this is the part. The second script included a sex scene between Ergen and Eowyn in the glittering pools.
Cool.
But they get interrupted by Legolas and Gimli sightseeing in the caves. So writing the scripts, Jackson and Miramax, they drew up a 110-day schedule for production, beginning in April '99, for release in Christmas 2000 and Memorial Day 2001.
How did that work out for you?
Yeah, it did, exactly. So Miramax became increasingly worried about sort of the costs, and so
rightfully so, honestly.
Yeah.
Like...
Exactly, right? Because I feel like there's a saying in Hollywood where it's like, on a certain level, like a director gets into a project so much that they can't get fired.
That's sort of like something similar happened with Steven Spielberg doing Jaws. I was just watching a Jaws documentary, and every day he was like, "I'm gonna get fired. I'm gonna get fired," and he never did. But like every day it was just like,
because,
and then it just gets to a point where like, you know what, it's, if they were gonna do it, they would have done it by now. Kind of a thing. But
yeah. So this is what Miramax wanted to do to save costs. So they wanted some rewrites. We want you to kill one of the four hobbits in the first movie. There's something.
Mary.
Sorry. So then they sent one of their producers to oversee the work being done in New Zealand. So they sent this guy Marty Katz over there. He's there for 4 months, and he told them like the films are more likely to cost $150 million together than 70. So basically, he was saying it's going to cost double. He says it's going to cost $75 million for two. It's going to cost $75 million for one, and you'll be lucky to get it at that price.
No, I imagine like they just went there and just saw there was just like a fucking cash register going ding 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 cha-ching cha-ching cha-ching. What are you doing?
Yeah, and they also just saw like he's basically building an army. Like, hey, you don't understand this guy, this weird guy. He's pretty much recruiting the entire country to make this movie for him, and we're gonna have to pay a country to make a movie.
I got those tax break incentives right out the fucking window.
Yeah. So then Bob Weinstein commissioned Jack Lencher to sketch out a one-film version of the story. Again, it's getting worse. So Lencher saw the story as too dense, and that the two-film version would have left audiences unsatisfied with a half-told story. So here are his thoughts. He thought Frodo was too weak as a character. And then he sent a memo saying, we need to do the following things. We need to cut the Bree scene. We need to cut the Battle of Helm's Deep. we need to either lose or use Saruman. We need to merge Rohan and
lose.
Basically, what he's saying is that I understand what he's saying. He's wrong, but basically what he's saying is like, it's like, imagine in the first film, right? What does Saruman do? He's just an antagonistic force. He's just there like, oh, I'm gonna fuck with you. I'm gonna do these stuff. He doesn't actually really like get involved in the plot. Like, if you think about the things that happen in the Lord of the Rings, they're running around and Saruman is just antagonizing them. He's sending things out to attack them.
True.
And so basically he's saying if he's going to exist, he should be there fighting with them. Now, again, I don't agree because like, you know, it works as like what he's doing because he's just like they don't get involved. Like the wizards don't really get that involved in this story. They're just like, they serve a different purpose. So
yeah, they're kind of like the Watchers kind of a thing.
Yeah. So I get what he's saying, but
it's stupid.
Yeah. Making Erwin Boromir's sister shorten the Rivendell and Moria scenes, which included losing the Balrog fight scene.
No.
Right?
Absolutely not.
as well as having the Ents prevent the Uruk-hai from kidnapping Merry and Pippin. Miramax drafted a schedule based on this version of the film. So Jackson basically said, like, oh, I agree that this is an interesting exercise in reducing the Lord of the Rings into one film. But you're cutting out half of the good stuff. So it doesn't make sense to do that.
It's like, I respectfully decline. I will not acquiesce to your request.
Yeah, exactly. I respectfully decline. Exactly. In the following meeting, he tried to convince Harvey Weinstein to make the first film on budget and then making the second film, and later suggested making a one-film version under the proviso that it would be 4 hours long. So, and like the total runtime of the Lord of the Rings movies that we have now is like 10 hours.
That sounds about right, yeah.
So like 10 hours or something like that. So Weinstein refused, insisting on telling the whole story in a 2-hour film. Okay.
Not possible. I'm sorry, that's not possible.
Not possible. Not possible. Well, not a good movie.
It wouldn't be a good movie. I mean, possible to make a movie, not possible to make a good, coherent movie.
Yeah. So Jackson balked, and Miramax declared that any script or work completed by Jackson, his team, or Weta Workshop was their property. And that they would commission Hussein Amini, who was this. So he was a guy. So like the Miramax, they made a lot of interesting films in the 90s, all these weird dramas. And so Hussein Amini was like a guy. He was a British Iranian guy who had written a lot of scripts for stuff that they distributed. And so they basically were saying, oh, we're going to have him rewrite it for you and we'll cut you out of it. And they're like, in fact, you know, they already showed the 2-film script to Amini and he loved it, quote unquote. So Jackson and Walsh refused to cooperate. And so Weinstein also said, we have John Madden, the guy who directed Shakespeare in Love. He's going to actually direct the film if you walk out. And in a later phone call, Jackson's agent said that Harvey Weinstein mentioned Quentin Tarantino.
So you're just going to get one of your bros to do it. That's what that sounds like. You're mad, so you're just going to get one of your friends to do it for you. What a fucking cocksucker.
What a fucking, piece of shit. What's funny, too, is just like, I'm just imagining, like, the Quentin Tarantino is like, the version of the Lord of the Rings, where they're just like, this Hobbit motherfucker, he stole my ring.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so basically Jackson knew this was a bluff. He knew, like, this is bullshit. They're not going to do that. So I'm going to walk. So they walked, but they also said, like, Peter Jackson's agent was like, hey, like, you know, if you hire anyone else, you can't actually use our work. And so you can't just like take all the work that we use and then just have someone else do it. That's illegal and you'll be in a lawsuit. So it's best off for you if you just put this into turnaround so someone else can buy out the project from you and we can continue somewhere else. And so basically they did that begrudgingly, but in the typical Weinstein fashion, they had to put some kind of like, I don't know, there's a term for it, but like a poison pill basically in the deal. So they gave him 4 weeks to find a new deal, and also had this condition where they demanded that the studio repay their investment and give them 5% of the revenue of the first film. And it would be half for Disney, half for themselves, because at the time Miramax was a Disney company.
Mm-hmm.
So again, here's the final fuck you for this whole situation where they put this
fucking
poison
Harvey
pill on
Weinstein. I mean, it's not even just the Weinstein company; it's just producers and companies in general. He's not the only piece of shit in Hollywood. Yes. He's probably one of the biggest pieces of shit in Hollywood, and I can't wait for him to die in prison. But like,
yeah.
I mean, I guess they would just call it good business.
Yeah. So now Jackson is trying to sell the film to a different studio.
Yeah, that bitch needs to hustle. Oh my god.
Yeah. So he made a 35-minute making of video to sell the project, and he had the script sent to various places. So at New Line, he had this friend there, Mark Ordesky, an executive. And knowing that he was a fan of the book, he called him to proposition the film to him. All the other studios passed. Every single other one of them, for different reasons. So two of them, like Sony, disliked the script. 20th Century Fox didn't like that it involved this other guy, Zanitz. So a lot of people had a problem with this Xanax guy because they didn't want him involved in producing. That was also a problem with the Weinstein situation. There was another one. It was called like Polygram. Again, these things don't even exist anymore. Yeah, I literally never heard of this company. Like when I was like, what was that? So they were being bought by Universal, so they couldn't get the rights to it either. So yeah. So what are your thoughts on our journey so far and just like the making?
Why isn't this a movie? Holy shit!
It kind of should be. I feel like it'll happen at some point. Actually,
wow. Like this feels like a journey in and of itself. Like I can picture a documentary right now with like Peter Jackson narrating and being like, "Oh yeah, I was running around. I kind of felt like I was Frodo. You know, I was trying to get rid of this thing and have someone take it from me. I have like a little animation of him like running through like Hollywood and."
You see different studios.
Yeah, he's got the script and like the different studios fade in and out of the background, and then he kind of pauses and turns around, and he just feels like Sauron's behind him or some shit. Yeah, it's like I can picture it now. It's gonna be a great documentary one day.
Yeah. So a fan of the books. So the New Line CEO Robert Shea was like into the concept ever since he heard Miramax landed it, but he initially refused the inquiry because he was just like sort of reticent about the percentage that the Weinsteins demanded. Like their demands were just a little too high. So eventually he did take a meeting with Jackson because they felt like they needed more lucrative franchises. So basically the meeting went well, and there's this really kind of interesting like quote that they have from him where the CEO said something like, "Why would I want people to pay $18 to watch The Lord of the Rings when they could pay $27?" And it's like, oh, I see what you're saying. Basically, he was like, we should make 3 films. Why make 3? Why make 2 when we can make 3 and make more money? And so then they were like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And so
we weren't gonna ask, but now that you say it.
Yes. So then they're like, okay, let's do 3 films.
Let's do this.
Yeah, but then that meant that they had to rewrite the film again.
Yep. But I mean, would it have made it easier? Maybe then maybe you don't have to condense so much into like. I mean.
Well, I think this is because now they're making 3 films, and on top of that, they're making 3 Lord of the Rings films. It's not like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings. It's 3 Lord of the Rings films. And so they went to write the 3 new scripts that gave them a lot more creative freedom. And they restructured everything accordingly. So the 3 films, they don't really correspond exactly with the volumes of the trilogy. It's more of a chronological adaptation.
Yeah.
And so they decided, okay, Frodo's quest is going to be the main focus, and the Aragorn subplot will be the other main sort of storyline. And the screenplay evolved a lot during production. They if you hear any of them talk about, they said they would like write lines during like right before they shoot, like, okay, we're actually gonna have you say this. Mm-hmm. And there's actually like one of the funny ones when we come to it was like the what was that Boromir where he says like one does not simply walk into Mordor. Mm-hmm. You can see him like looking down. Because he's reading.
Simply walk into Mordor.
Yeah, he's like reading the line. So, yeah. So, and then just like the last piece of this too. So, another part of this was like at the time there was a couple different things that happened. Another financial part. So basically, there was this thing that happened in Germany. So after Germany reunified, they got into some of these financial issues. So they created this tax loophole, which basically allowed people to like do a complete write-off of certain expenses.
Oh, this sounds really familiar, actually. I think I've heard of this.
This was like how U-Bowl made all of his films, all of them. So what ended up happening was New Line was able to use that plus all of the sort of tax incentives from New Zealand. And they were able to massively defer all of their costs. And so like they reported that a combination of tax breaks, pre-release distribution deals, and sales of associated merchandising rights meant that the production company, so at New Line, was only risking $20 million on each of the 3 films. That's insane if you actually think about it.
So like $60 million in total?
Yeah.
That's like
that
less than what the budget was.
That's yeah. So
When
the
they
budget,
were still with like Miramax, there was going to be $75 million for one movie,
yeah,
and then you just wow,
yeah. So again,
that's
that
good business, babe.
yeah, it was very good.
Holy
So like,
shit!
if you think these movies, basically every single one, if you count like the DVDs and other stuff, each one of these films made $1 billion. Their risk was $60 million.
But you get chump change. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
their
nothing.
houses don't even cost that much.
Yeah,
Oh my god. Oh
yeah,
my
it's
god.
great. It's and all of these things had to happen at once for the Lord of the Rings to get made. All of these
Dude,
things.
it's like it's a perfect storm. I think I
Yeah,
said that before we started. Like we went on air. Like this sounds like it was a perfect storm. Yeah,
yeah.
fuck you, Miramax.
I
New
know.
Line for the win.
Yeah, yeah, right. It was just like the perfect situation, and so the Lord of the Rings, they began filming in August of '97. The production design started in August of '97. Storyboarding began around the same time, and principal photography started in October 11th of '99, and it ran all the way through to December of 2000. And they did a bunch of pickup shots all the way to 2004, and so they filmed them all concurrently for 438 days. 400 for like a 400
It's like
day
a year
shoot.
and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 years. 2 years?
Crazy.
No, the year and about a year and a half. But still, like that's insane.
That's insane.
Insane.
That is
No wonder why
insane.
they all became like such good bros.
Well, they
Like
live together. They just live
exactly.
together.
You like just yeah. I'm just gonna go live in New Zealand for like a year and a half. Like go film this movie, hang out with some chill
Yeah.
dudes. We're all gonna get. I
Well,
love that they all got tattooed. Like that was one of my
yeah,
favorite fucking
yeah,
things. That Ian McKellen has a fucking Lord of the Rings tattoo.
yeah.
Like
Well,
I love that.
one of the things that I there's just so many fun stories. Like I remember with Sean Astin, he was talking about, again, this tells you like when this happened. He said he was playing GoldenEye on N64 with someone.
Oh my god.
He was playing GoldenEye, right? And he's like going around the corner, and then he sees someone and he shoots him, and the person like the avatar character he shot was Sean Bean. And then Sean Bean showed up in a helicopter.
That's
It's
great.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I love that. Yeah,
Um,
I think I read somewhere that like Viggo Mortensen and Orlando Bloom took up surfing while they were there because they were like there was lots of time where we had nothing to do, and they both there's I guess a moment in the Mines of Moria like Viggo Mortensen wiped out hard surfing, like, and he fucked up his face a little bit. And there's a moment in the Mines of Moria where you only see Aragorn from like one side of his face because the makeup department couldn't fix it.
Yeah,
They were like, I don't know what we're gonna do about this.
I mean, what's really interesting too was like, I was reading and they were talking like there are some things. So like there was a scene, I believe the scene on the cliff in Return of the King. He said that he shot one side of that conversation between Sam and Frodo in like '99, and then the other side, the Frodo side, was a year later.
Seamless. That's
And
crazy. That was fucking seamless. That's
it's unbelievable. And he was like, "Yeah, every cut is 1 year jump in time."
These
things were shot a year apart.
That's
unbelievable.
Good. That's good editing too.
Yeah,
good makeup too because it has to look consistent.
Yeah, it has to look consistent and all this. Yeah, so it's like unbelievable.
Yeah, that's why like when you're seeing behind the scenes stuff and they're in their makeup trailer and they're getting their makeup and there's like hundreds of pictures all around the mirror of like front, left, right, under like or like everything has to be consistent and seamless. And that is just like that is mind-blowing. That's crazy.
And that's also why there's so much material about the making of this film. Like there are hours and hours and hours. It's probably the best making of documentary basically ever too. Of all the stuff you see just about the making of the Lord of the Rings.
That's awesome.
Because of how crazy and daunting it was. Okay, so yeah, that's how we got to making this film. And yeah, so we're just to let everyone know yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I go to the bathroom really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Before we get into like the actual
It's all good.
movie. Here, you can look at my dog. She's sleeping. have returned unscathed by the heathens.
All right.
Get back. Go back to sleep. All right.
Cool. Yeah, and another thing we should talk about too. So like, there's a theatrical version of the film.
Yes.
And there's the extended version. So we'll be talking about the extended versions. And yeah, I mean there are some differences. I mean, I think most people like the extended versions more. I think the Return of the King, there's some things that are added that's a little bit too much, but for the most part, they're the better version, I'd say.
And I will say, you can watch, like, if you don't watch the extended version, you miss really nothing. Like, they do a very good job of making sure that both are very cohesive and understandable, and you don't have to watch the extended version. I like watching a long-form Lord of the Rings movie because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And I'm spoiled by it now.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when my sister literally like got like the big box set of like the DVDs and had like 3 DVDs in it.
Yeah.
So, like, the extended version. It was awesome.
I mean, I still have that box, that original, like the Blu-ray set. I mean, I even bought the 4K that came out. The 4K was like unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a franchise that keeps on selling. It's gonna keep selling until the end of time, you know.
Also,
basically.
I don't know. I feel like the first Harry Potter movie came out in 99. Is that
it came out in 2001?
It also came out in 2001. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I think is really interesting about this time period specifically is that it made fantasy accessible to a larger audience that wouldn't necessarily be into fantasy, because like I'm sure you know from playing Magic or anyone who plays D&D that it was mocked a lot, even though anyone can play it. You don't have to be someone who's already into like Lord of the Rings in order to enjoy that kind of form of fantasy, because like I feel like the 80s was saturated with fantasy movies, and not in a bad way, because I feel like it was like the birth of a new form of film that was like just exploding on the scene, like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Lady Hawk, Willow, Legend. Yeah. Like that's just, those are like the big 5, I feel like. Conan. So like I like that, even though there was kind of like this break, I feel like, because I'm sure there were some fantasy movies that came out in the 90s. I just can't think of any at the moment. Even though there was like this break, I feel like 2001 you get Harry Potter, like even though the books had already come out and Lord of the Rings books had already been out, you get a visual taste of like new fantasy that's like anybody can enjoy it, and it's okay. Like,
yeah,
that's why it meant a lot to me as a kid, because I was kind of too young to start reading Harry Potter. Lord of the Rings is incredibly dense, and it does not hold my attention in a book form.
It made it so accessible. It so accessible, especially both of those, like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, are made for a mass consumption.
Yes, and I feel so fortunate that I was 11 and got to experience both of these things and grow up with it. Because by the time like Return of the King comes along, it's like 2004.
Yeah, it's like 2003 December.
I'm like 13, 14 years old, and I've like grown watching this, and it's still,
especially stuff like Harry Potter, because like, you know, people felt like they were like him, having the same journey.
My older sister started reading the first book at Harry's age. She was 11 when she started reading it. She was 17, 18 years old. Maybe we'll be generous and say maybe 19, because there was a couple years break between Half-Blood Prince and then the Deathly Hallows. But yeah, she spent her entire youth growing up with Harry and Hermione and Ron. Like that's a huge deal for a lot of people. Hence why people are so upset with the author.
With the author, and I mean, to be honest, like it's just a matter of time before another slate of books comes out with them in adventures in their adult age. It will happen while we are alive. I guarantee.
I don't like it, but I will say Twilight got my little sister into reading novels. I will say that. Like I was never interested in it. I never found it all that appealing.
Yeah. And there's a direct line between YA and Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, now my little sister devours books, and I can literally trace it back to when she picked up, she probably picked up Chronicles of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first.
Which also came out, the movie came out around this time. It was like 2005. Yeah.
Exactly. But then, she started reading Twilight, and those are thick books. Those aren't short stories. So like it's nice that we have, and like I think it's the Aragorn books, the dragon ones.
Yeah, Aragorn was another one. They're
The
doing
movie
a
sounded
remake.
like it was a flop,
The
but
movie was yes, it was, but they made it at the time.
but
Like,
they made
again,
it
just
because Harry Potter,
showing
Lord of the Rings came out, and we're like, you know what, fantasy's fucking cool.
fantasy. Yeah,
Fantasy's
fantasy
cool,
is,
man. Like,
and then like, you know, half a decade later we get Game of Thrones, which is like sort of an opposite inverse sort of the idea of what these things established.
yes, it's definitely an inverse. And then now we have The Witcher and shit, man. Like it's like I know like he's been recast and everything like that, whatever. But like I'm just saying, like we wouldn't have The Witcher on our TV screens. I feel like if we didn't get this, if fantasy didn't get this fucking shot in the arm.
Yeah,
like
this was a huge thing for the fantasy genre. This moment in time.
Yes.
And it's led to some great. I mean, you know, again, stuff like Game of Thrones. Still, like they just did a prequel series. The prequel series did really well. Like this stuff really encaptures people. And what's cool about Lord of the Rings is really like the first thing that made the genre explode. There's so many other things that were made that were just like, well, I'm gonna take his idea and I'm gonna do this with it. And that's basically what a lot of people were doing. I mean, that's exactly what George R.R. Martin did. Is like, yeah, I'm gonna take that idea, but I want to do it way darker.
Yeah, and the thing is, whether you like it or not, because I don't plan on watching House of Dragon. I lost interest in Game of Thrones, but whether you lost interest or you stuck with it or not, it's cool that it's cool that it's not just science fiction. We get science fiction, we get fantasy, because they're very married to each other in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It's a weird marriage, but it works.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that people just have like different things that they can choose from, you know, and that's what makes me happy. That's why I always have loved fantasy.
Yeah. Agreed here. And again, like it just watching these films just makes you go like, well, I want more. Like,
yeah,
I want to
that's
just like.
I didn't just stop with Lord of the Rings. I was like, well, now I gotta watch the Hobbit movies because
Yeah.
now I have to I'm in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it, and that's why I ended up watching Rings of Power because I'm like, I'm fucking in it, and I don't want to leave the world. It's
exactly. Yeah, you're in it, and the world is so rich, and like the stuff that they don't even cover in these films.
Yeah, like Aragorn was like helping Gandalf look for Gollum, I think, in the books, and then he found him and took him to Rivendell, and then Gandalf went on a 2-year journey or something like that back to the Shire, and it was all this other stuff. Like it's
stuff that we don't even talk about in the film.
Exactly.
Not to mention the Second Age stuff, where there's basically a similar war in the Second Age as there is in this age, where they have to fight Morgoth, and Morgoth is basically the Sauron before Sauron.
Yeah, Morgoth was like, that's. I feel like they've referenced Morgoth once in the Hobbit movie. One of them. I think Galadriel has a line that says like, "Servant calls Sauron servant of Morgoth" or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Morgoth was a whole fucking thing.
Morgoth was a whole thing. It was like a huge thing.
He started all this shit.
He was the first Dark Lord, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, Sauron's just basically like a Gandalf type creature, isn't he? Like they're of the same ilk, basically.
Yeah, well, they're all basically Ishtari god, angel gods, whatever you want to call
angels.
Them. Yeah, it's just sort of, I would say Sauron, like he just had a better idea. Like, I think I'll make these rings. I'll put all this power into these rings and trick people. Like that was his idea.
Yeah.
Like I won't win with just brute strength. I will have that too, but I'm also going to like trick people into taking my ring.
Yeah, and he's a shapeshifter and shit. It's like they don't even get into the fact that Sauron's a fucking shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Like that's scary. And he's like the Lord of Werewolves and shit. I'm just like, what?
Crazy.
And there's a king werewolf.
Yeah,
and there's like
crazy.
It's mind blowing. It's like literally this is okay. Yeah, I understand why J.R. Tolkien spent his entire life writing
his entire life.
His entire life. His entire life was devoted to not only world building his own thing, but just literature in general.
Yeah.
Creating his own languages.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, so the film begins with a prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And we get all this stuff. The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost. For none now live who remember it. And we get this music.
I'm getting chills. Like,
I know, it's just, you can just imagine it. So who's it? Howard Shore who did the score?
I think it was Howard Shore.
Unfucking believable music.
Unreal.
Fucking believable, yeah.
Just like anyone can hear the dun, 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 like the Harry Potter thing. Like you can feel it with Lord of the Rings. It's just like
you can absolutely feel it.
Fucking Howard Shore, man.
Yeah. It began with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest, and fairest of all beings. So what's interesting is like, and again, they don't even touch on this, right? So at first I was like, again, I don't understand any of this shit. You know what I'm saying? But like, they don't even talk about the fact that those rings were created by the elves as a counter to the One Ring. They don't even talk about that in this prologue. They say, oh, there are these rings. There are just these. It's just like, it's just so funny how there's so much story that even though this is very efficient in how it gets it out, there's stuff that they just can't talk about because it's like such a long story that they can't even like touch on it. It's like, well, they're rings. Just know characters. You need to know they're rings.
All you need to know is that they're rings. The thing is, this prologue is the bare minimum, and it works. Usually, when someone gives you the bare minimum of something, it's shit because you're half-assing it probably. But it's like, no, it's whole-assed, but it's still the bare minimum. This is like the most This is the most information we can give you without her talking for an hour.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Because that could have been the whole movie, just, Galadriel being like, oh, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was just, oh my God.
And then there was Morgoth, and then we lived on this place, and then it got flooded, and it got put underwater like Atlantis. And then we had to fight this war. But then the war was over, and then Sauron came, and then he tricked people, and then he made rings, and then yeah.
And it's taking place over the course of 1,000 years.
1,000 years?
Like, what?
Yeah.
You guys, Sauron's patient as fuck.
He's super patient. So 7 rings were given to the dwarf lords, the great miners. 9 were given to the race of men who, above all else, desire power.
Not wrong.
For within these rings was bound the strength and will to govern each race, but they were each of them deceived. For another ring was made, deep in the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom. The dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring, and into it he poured his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate all life. One ring to rule them all.
Can we also just appreciate how cool Cate Blanchett's voice is? She has one of the greatest voices
It's
ever.
so perfect. It really is. It's so perfect. And they did this thing. They basically had someone else read this prologue speech. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like the way she says it, it's just so. It feels like a fairy tale. It feels like you're laying down in bed. Tell me about the One Ring, mommy.
Once upon a time, there was the One Ring of power.
Once upon a time, there were all these rings, and so there were 3 rings for the elves, and there were 7. It feels like you're sitting in bed, and your mom's telling you about this fairy tale.
Exactly, and it's just it's so her voice.
And it even has a moral of the story, like don't be enraptured by power. It's going to corrupt
or by
you.
Pretty things. Not all that glitters is gold. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like someone wrote that. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
No, it's like it's a fable. It's a fable for sure. Don't be corrupted by pretty shit. It's not always good. But like her voice is just like I hated Andy Serkis's Jungle Book movie. Absolutely did not like it. But her as what's the snake's name?
Oh, she played the snake?
She was the snake. And what was so wonderful about her performance as the snake was not only was it, it's a female snake because they called the snake she, but like very androgynous, exceptionally androgynous. And the snake, because the snake is supposed to be, at least in that version, as old as the forest. She sounds old as fuck. And it's just, and it's so threatening and evil, but like ambiguous at the same time. It's just great. Her voice is just, it's very soothing and comforting. And then she just goes, like when she goes dark, she goes dark, and it's just perfect casting. Perfect.
Yeah. And so after she says like one ring to rule them all, we see Sauron in the armor.
Oh, it's so good.
In Mount Doom, forging it, and he's like, got the ring. Like, yes, I have the ring.
I don't know who the body double was for that. I don't know who he was, but like he wore that armor like he was like. What I love about the armor, what I love about the armor for Sauron is like it looks like it's part of him. You know what I mean? He doesn't look like he would have
like it's grafted
flesh
into
and
his
bone.
skin.
Yeah, like it's grafted into his body. Like there's no holes in his armor. It literally looks like it's just he is bound in it, and like it's just really, really cool.
So the guy who played him was Sala Baker.
I love how you had that ready for me. Like I love that.
Yeah, so he seemed like he's a native New Zealander, and that's the other thing too. Is like, I don't know, it's just so funny because like because of this, like they cast a lot of New Zealand actors for certain roles, and they have a certain accent, and so it's kind of funny. Like whenever you think of like the Uruk-hai, they have this New Zealand accent. They have this like kind of like this Kiwi.
It's just like, you're cute.
He wants something to drink.
Like, meat's back on the menu, boy.
Boys, yes.
What I love about that is that like when you first meet the Uruk-hai, they're very just like one track mind, very like.
Oh, there's
not oafish, but just vicious. They're a killer. They're bred for one single purpose. But by the time we get to the Two Towers, they've kind of formed their own like bonds. They're kind of their own culture. They have a hierarchy, and like I like that about that.
Yeah, they're different, and like you know, in like you said in the second and third movie, we see that they are different than like orcs or goblins, and they don't really like them. They don't like those other guys. Like
they don't fuck with them.
We're a little different. Yeah, like exactly. They don't fuck with them at all.
Goblin scum.
They kill him and they kill him and eat him.
Personally, they kill him and eat him. Meat's back on the menu. They don't fucking fuck around. But you know what? The goblins and the orcs eat them too. So they're just like, hey. I mean, I was just playing cards with this guy last night. But
we ate him.
His entrails.
So one by one, the free lands of Middle Earth fell to the power of the ring, but there were some who resisted. A last alliance of men and elves marched against the armies of Mordor, and on the very slopes of Mount Doom, they fought for the freedom of Middle Earth. And we see this massive fucking battle. Like,
oh god, seeing this in the theater was just
it's
like,
unbelievable. Yeah,
what? Like,
because this is the beginning. This is like a story before the story, and it's like one of the biggest battles. I feel like one of the biggest battle scenes we've seen to this time.
Yeah,
in theaters.
I mean, the closest
and it's in the prologue.
The thing that a movie that came out probably like decades earlier, probably in the 70s or 80s, was I think it was called Napoleon, or no, Waterloo. Those battle sequences are unfucking real. But that's just one movie I can think of between then and now or whatever. This was an insane battle, but it looks seamless. It looks so seamless. Yeah. And you can get, unlike with Waterloo, where they were filming from planes and helicopters and getting like a very cool aerial shot, you can be in the shit with it. Yeah. And it's just so, like when they're charging and the elves like all bring up their like giant spear swords or whatever.
Yeah. And a lot of that really had to do with how advanced the VFX was. Like that shot, for instance, like that shot was like, they basically shot 5 people on a green screen doing that motion, and like so some people come at them. And then they took that, they replicated it a bunch, and then created the whole background with all.
And it looks great.
It looks amazing. It looks phenomenal.
Freaking great.
Yeah, and this whole battle scene is like amazing. And then like and it's just victory was near, but the power of the ring could not be undone. And then Sauron comes and he just like he has a mace and he's like destroying these people.
And again, like Sauron's so formidable. It's not even just his presence. He's literally a giant. He's like 8 feet fucking tall, and he's just swinging this fucking mace around, annihilating this
annihilating
shit. And
people.
It's just like, he's scary. He's a fucking scary dude.
And I love like the first shot that you see of him in this battle. Like it's behind his helmet. His helmet kind of comes into almost like a Vader-esque kind of feel to it, and then people are like, and they just get fucked. They get
fucked.
Then he kills Isildur's dad. Just smacks him and just absolutely kills him. And it's like it was in this moment when all hope had faded that Isildur, son of the king, took up his father's sword. He takes it and he cuts his hand off. And that was it. And that destroyed his corporal form, and his corporal form like explodes like a bomb.
Yeah, it kind of like crunches in on itself, and then it like, it's like, very, very cool.
Yeah. So but that's not the end of this story about the ring. So Isildur leaves with the ring. He doesn't destroy it. He gets killed in a raid. And
So
then
sad.
yeah, it came to the creature Gollum, who took it deep in the tunnels of the Misty Mountains, and there it consumed him. The ring gave Gollum unnatural long life. For 500 years, it poisoned his mind, and in the gloom of Gollum's cave, it waited. And then it found its opportunity to leave, and it came then to Bilbo, the Hobbit. And then he got the ring. And then at the end of this prologue, she says, "For the time will soon come when hobbits will shape the fortunes of us all." And that's just the prologue of this movie.
That's just your prologue, sweetie. Buckle up.
So it picks up in the Shire, and we see Bilbo is there. He's writing this book, There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale. And then we are introduced to the hobbits of the Shire, and they're simple folk. He's like, oh, they're not counted as the very wise or anything like that, but they have passion for food, ale, and weed, as he says.
I mean, hey, like that. I love food. Not a big fan of ale. Not a big fan of the weed, but I can appreciate those who do.
Yeah. So he's about to celebrate his 111th birthday. He does not look 111 for.
No, he looks pretty spry, actually.
He looks very spry. Yeah. So Frodo is waiting for Gandalf to arrive on this little kind of ledge, and he's like, "You are late." Says, "A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to."
Okay,
And
let's not talk in riddles, fucking Gandalf. Okay, like you're late. Okay, let's just admit
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So they have a laugh, and they're like, sort of, they're talking about Bilbo, and like Bilbo. Again, this is a scene that got cut, but like, there's this thing where like Bilbo's like obsessed with the ring. He's like, "Where'd I put my ring? Where is it? Where is it?" And he's like,
yeah, he's like losing his shit.
He's losing his shit. But it's like, oh, it's in my pocket. It was like there the whole time. And Gandalf kind of knows like Bilbo's planning to do something, but he's not letting on to Frodo. And we get all this fun. Again, it's sort of establishing like that the tone of the film and also the tone of like how life is like in the Shire. It's very I don't know how to put it, but it's like it's just a very nice place.
Easygoing.
Yeah.
You know, they don't seem to worry too much about politics or war. I'm sure that there's some kind of like stewardship. There's some kind of head. I almost said goblin. There's some kind of head hobbit that like probably is like that probably like runs the show or like a mayor or some shit. But like they don't really have any worries.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really need to worry about voter turnout or anything like that. Everybody kind of just eats food and fucks off, and I'm like, that sounds like a paradise to me, honestly. It's almost like the Shire is always built up in Frodo's mind as, and actually the hobbits in general who go on this quest, as like heaven. The Shire, it has such like it conjures up such a beautiful, peaceful place, and it does kind of seem like this heavenly paradise. Because what do hobbits have to worry about? They don't need to go on quests. They don't need to fight in anybody else's war. Why would they? They're 3 feet fucking tall.
Yeah, they're 3 feet tall.
I mean, but that's also people underestimating the ability of a hobbit. Like, oh, why do you need to fight in a war? Why do you care about our politics? You're 3 feet fucking tall. And he's like, well, I have heart.
Yeah.
And hope.
And I'm a part of this world too, and
exactly. I'm a part of this world too, because that war is going to come to my doorstep.
Yeah.
Which doesn't it in the books? Don't Merry and Pippin go back and kick Ciri's ass?
In the books, there's called the Scouring of the Shire, which we don't get in the films, where they come back home, and I believe it's like, some villains took over. They took over. They basically invaded it.
They allude to it in Gillette, but they make it a possible future.
A foreboding thing. If they fail, the Shire will be destroyed and scoured.
And again, that just goes back to like the real world inspiration for all of this. It's like, you could just let France fall to Germany, but guess what? They're coming for you. They're coming for your little island next.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to the next one and the next one, and they're not going to stop. So somebody has to put their foot down and say no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Fascism is bad.
It's bad. So, and like another, like we get, it's just all these like kind of cute things. Like Gandalf is like this little kid's like, oh, Gandalf.
I love that.
And then he lights little fireworks for them, and they're all happy. And then, but then there's this one hobbit guy with his wife. His wife's like really mad, and then he's like becomes mad. Yeah, exactly.
Well, remember, like Gandalf represents the outsider. He represents magic, which is like the hobbits don't really seem very magical. He represents like not danger, but just the outside, the other. He represents, I
Yes.
feel like, the other coming into their sweet little paradise. And
Also, like, there's a reason why Gandalf is meeting Bilbo. Like, what happens before this is The Hobbit, where Gandalf basically shows up to the Shire and is like, "Hey, I need a Hobbit to come with me, and I'm going to choose you, Bilbo Baggins," and sort of ropes Bilbo into this whole adventure with the dwarves, which he risks his life but becomes very rich over. But at the end of that adventure, as we'll see when we talk about the Hobbit films, uh, Bilbo was gone for so long that they thought he was dead, and they started to sell off his property.
they literally were taking his shit. Like, they had him legally declared dead.
Dead.
Because,
and
like,
they were selling
the
off his
last time
shit.
they saw him, he was running through a glade, being like, "I'm
Yeah.
going on an
going on
adventure."
an
And then
adventure.
it's been like 2 years, bro. Like, your shit is our shit now. Find your
And let's just say that Bilbo wasn't really happy with that situation, and so it made him say "F you" to everyone else. Get the hell away from me and my stuff. Especially the Central Bagginses, who wanted to stake all of his money, and they were mad that he lived for so long.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the Central Bagginses, though, seem like assholes. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. They're your uncle who, like, never cared about your grandparent, but, like, once they died, they wanted the money, and they tried to take everything that they could.
No, that was more like my aunt, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the Central Bagginses.
No, I shouldn't say that. She's not that bad, but, you know, there was some shit. I know what that feels like.
Yeah. So Gandalf comes to see Bilbo, and they have this nice little meeting, and he's like, "Oh, you haven't aged a day since I last saw you." And you know, they get talking, and like basically Bilbo is like, you know, I need a long holiday. I need to go. I need a vacation. I feel like
Bermuda, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the Caymans.
I feel like butter scraped against too much toast. He's like, I'm leaving. I'm not coming back. So at this party that they have, we see Frodo's friend Sam, and then we see our friendly troublemakers, Merry Eddock, Merry Brandybuck, and Peregrine Took, a Pippin.
Fucking Tolkien and these weird ass names. I'm sorry. Like, I love it, but I'm just like, what was he smoking? I want to know what Tolkien was smoking sometimes.
Not only that, but there's this long genealogy where we can see like where
the
him
genealogies.
Where we can see like the Tooks and the Bagginses intersected and who got married and all this, because they're like cousins or whatever. And even Merry and Frodo are cousins, once removed, blah blah blah, this and that. So
he's my cousin once removed on his mother's side.
On his mother's side, yeah.
I'm Irish. I can make fun of it.
Yeah. So they steal this massive firework that's like takes the shape of a dragon. It scares everybody.
That effect though was pretty good. Like, I like that. That special effect is pretty fucking good.
It was amazing. And then Gandalf punches them by making them wash dishes.
Let's get another one.
Yeah. So they're troublemakers. They're silly little, you know, harmless but
comic relief.
Yes. So Bilbo gives a speech at this party. You know, he's like, I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
I love that kind of goes over. You can kind of see the reaction. It kind of goes over some people's heads. But there's a couple fuckers in the audience like, what the fuck, man? We've been neighbors. I only took some of your china when you went missing.
Yeah, right.
I took your beer steins, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really funny too, because like you see some like and then
some people are kind of like, what?
Yeah, and Gandalf's like, ooh, he went there. Okay.
Sick burn, bro. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Basically, I like some of you, but not all that much, and the rest of you are just assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I'm serious. I don't think he ever got over that situation where they tried to sell off his shit.
I mean, I think I'd be pissed if people tried selling off my shit.
Yeah. And they do it really well in the Hobbit film where he comes back. It's funny. So Bilbo then he puts on the one ring, he disappears, and he said before saying like, I'm leaving, this is goodbye, I'm never coming back. See you later.
Abracadabra.
Yeah, abracadabra. And they're all blown like, oh my god, what's going on?
Yeah, but they keep going with the party. That's what I think is hilarious.
They do.
Partying.
They do. Yeah.
There's actually also a cute moment in the extended version before Bilbo disappears. He's having a little conversation with Frodo, and he's trying to be like, you know, Frodo, like, after I took you in when your parents conveniently died and you're an
Yeah.
orphan,
Yeah.
you know, like I really care about you or some shit. And Frodo's just like, are you drunk?
He's like, yes, but what does that matter?
Yeah, he's like, well, yeah, but like, who cares? like I like that. It's showing you that like maybe Bilbo isn't the, and we see probably a reason why in the Hobbit movies. He's not like a super emotionally verbal person. I think because this seems very surprising to Frodo that he's being like, no, I care about you and you're my heir or whatever.
He is his heir. Yeah.
He's not emotionally sentimental, but he is on the inside, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Because it's really interesting. Like, again, we'll kind of talk about it in the Hobbit. I feel like the Hobbit events sort of changed him a lot.
Yeah.
Because, and he even says it like, oh, you know, before you showed up, Gandalf, us, Bagginses, we didn't really do anything. We didn't go on adventures. We didn't do anything, and we were just like all the other hobbits. We just like smoked and chilled and did whatever.
Which I don't think you should. Which I think sometimes people feel like they have to do something great and meaningful to have like some kind of legacy, and I feel like that's kind of how Bilbo feels at this point in his life. Is that he's like, oh, I did this great thing. Nobody gets it though. Nobody really understands how I feel. But like, don't sell yourself short. You can have a super chill life and still have meaning to it. You can still have legacy to it. I think people put way too much emphasis on like leaving behind a legacy, even though I think it's a very human thing to do.
Yeah. So Gandalf is waiting for Bilbo in his little home, and he's like, "Oh, well, that was quite a trick." He's like, "Oh, it was no big deal, you know, whatever." And then it comes to like seeing that Bilbo has the ring, and Bilbo won't give it up. He doesn't want to do it. And he calls it precious, and then like he's like, "Whoa, like what the fuck?" Someone else called it that.
It's like, bro, I think you're tripping right now.
Yeah, like put the crack pipe down. And so then he's like, you know, like, I won't give it up. It's mine. It's like I have it. And he's like you're trying to steal it. He's like, and he says, do not take me for some conjurer of tricks. I'm not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you. Just let it go.
I love when Gandalf uses that voice. Also, I love that he's just like, don't call me a thief, bitch.
Yeah.
We've been friends for a really long time. I've put your life in danger. Yes, I will admit, but I'm not a thief.
but I saved you from that situation in The Hobbit, and you got rich off of it. So
yeah, you got fucking rich off of it, dude. And I haven't asked you for shit since. Like, seriously, like I like that Gandalf's just like, don't call me a thief. Like, it's just something that's very personal to call someone a thief.
Yeah. And then he finally lets it go. Like he's like, okay, I'll let it go. And then he's about to walk out. He's like, Bilbo, you still have it in your pocket. Like, okay. And then he like slowly drops it. And he's like, oh, I think I know the ending of my book. He lived happily ever after. And then Bilbo walks off to go to the Shire. Oh no, to go to Rivendell. He goes to Rivendell.
Do you think Bilbo would have thrown the ring into the volcano?
Oh no.
Even though he gives it up.
He would have also been bit by Gollum.
True. But if it had just been Bilbo who had to go on the adventure, like say with like different circumstances, different characters, obviously, because the whole story would be different. Because he seems to be, he doesn't give it up easily to Gandalf, but he at least can still see reason. He hasn't gotten to the point where reason is gone. So,
well, what's interesting is like the film at least kind of makes the case that he has no idea that it's the Ring of Power, which kind of does affect his understanding of it. He just thinks it's this. He thinks that he went on this adventure with these dwarves. He found this ring, which he got in this riddle duel with Gollum. He basically he did steal it, but he won it fairly. It's given him these powers. It's just like a fun thing. He doesn't think anything else of it. And so I think that sort of affects the relationship he has with it.
Okay, that's fair.
I think it would change both good and bad if he knew it was the Ring of Power. I think he would feel like, oh shit, this is really bad. I should destroy it. But then it's the Ring of Power, and it would start taking hold of you.
Yeah, that's very true.
So he has a very kind of different relationship with it than Bilbo does, which is interesting.
Yeah, and circumstance and all that stuff kind of changes as well, especially once Frodo is told what it is, kind of a thing.
Yeah. No, it feels like I feel like he does know maybe at some point, but then like we see him again a last time in Return of the King, and I don't know if it's old age, but he says, "Oh," he says, "Oh, Frodo, whatever happened with that ring I gave you? Oh, I lost it." That's what he says, or something like that.
Yeah, so there's almost kind of like Frodo kind of trying to spare his feelings in a way because he knew what it meant to him and what he went through to get it, basically. So he's like, oh, I kind of just lost it. Sorry. He can barely hear me anyway. He's the half.
Exactly. Yeah. He's 120 years old, and he should have lived to be 80 or whatever. He's doing like the reverse. I forget the movie where
Benjamin
the dude ages backward. Yeah.
Doing a reverse button.
yeah, exactly. So he drops the ring. Frodo shows up. Frodo's like, "Oh, where'd he go?" He's like, "Oh, he's gone." I'm like, "Oh, I knew he was gonna leave. He's been talking about it for a long time." And then Gandalf is like, with the ring, keep it secret, keep it safe. I have somewhere to go. I have to get some information. I'll be back, but do not let anyone know about the ring, or tell anyone about the ring, or give anyone the ring.
Don't look at it. Don't touch it. I don't even fucking think about it, Frodo.
And I'll be back. So just wait.
What I also love about this is Gandalf never picked it up. He went to, but he left it literally in the doorway because he was like, I don't like this. This is not kosher for me. And then he has to go do like the good old fashioned library search. They don't have Google.
Yeah.
Ring of Power. Oh shit.
Yeah. I really like this whole sequence. And then we get this amazing shot of Minas Morgul where we see like the whole tower, and then we just hear this screaming. Shot Baggins Shire. That's all he says. It's him screaming, and then we see these gates blast open, and then these dudes riding.
And that's another thing in the book. He was torturing Gollum like himself. It wasn't like the orcs and shit that were torturing Gollum. Like Sauron was doing the damn thing himself. Like, because I guess in the books he wasn't an eye. He was like a body.
Yeah.
Or was he an eye?
I the entire so the idea of him being an eye, I think, is mostly contrived for the film.
Okay.
Especially the way that it's depicted. I think that is something that they basically, which is amazing too, because like iconography is just absolutely iconic of this eye as what's his name? It's eye unlidded and fire or whatever. Yeah. So I think he was in some other form. He was like Voldemort,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Still sort of corporal, but like not totally alive.
Yeah. Which is like also very sinister, but there is something about the eye that is just.
It's
and
so
when you say
scary.
Unlidded too, that just means it's open and it's just.
It's always watching,
raging to find that one thing, and knowing that because it's imbued with part of you is just like, oh, it'll find its way back, and it's just
it's really scary. Like that whole iconography of like the Eye of Sauron. Is it's unbelievable.
Excuse me.
And there's a couple of sequences where we see it, that like we get a glimpse of it in this scene where he's just looking at the ring, and he can just feel it. It's like the sound design too is so good.
The sound design is outstanding, and I love when Bilbo drops it the first time on the floor. It's like that hard.
It's a very hard thump.
And you can, and it's almost kind of like that's the sound it actually made when he dropped it. It wasn't just some kind of, subconscious effect or something like that for the audience. It's like, no, that's how weighty it is. That's how intense it is. And it's
it is. It's a weight. It's a burden.
Yeah. Because you see that later on in the movie with like Frodo's neck covered in scars, and it's just like weighty, and it's like burning him, and he's like, it's getting heavier, and it's like, and you see, it's one thing for Frodo just to say, oh, it's getting heavier, but when you see the like physical toll that it has on him, it's just awful. Poor little guy. It's just so sad.
It's so awful. It's so, especially like I feel like in the second film, you really kind of feel the burden that's on him a lot, and it's just like. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah. So we'll get there. So yeah, I really love this sequence. So Gandalf goes to, I'm pretty sure it's Minas Tirith Library. He's looking at all these documents, and he's like, and I love the music, and like these. He's like looking and looking. He's reading and he's reading, and he's like, he finds this passage about Second Age. He's reading these documents, and he's like, oh, so the Ring of Power, it had this inscription on it, and that you can only read the inscription if you put it in a fire. And so it has these markings in the black speech. And so he's like, okay, so I got to go back and like I got to see, is this the ring? Meanwhile, the ring wraiths are also going to the Shire because Gollum told them, you know, back in Shire. So that's all they got to go on, and they're gonna find it. So Gandalf is like we get this kind of jump scary kind of thing where like Gandalf is like waiting in the dark, and he like grabs Frodo's like, did you keep it secret? Did you keep it safe? And he's like, here it is. And he's like, he puts it in the fire. It's like, why'd you do that? It's like, oh, it's just like you'll see, but don't worry. He takes it out and he's like, oh, just, you know, you can put it in your hand because it's actually quite cool. And he takes it. He's like, is there any inscription on it? Do you see anything? And at first he's like, no, there's nothing. And then we see like the red light start to glow on his face. Like, oh, there's this inscription, but I know what language it's in. Is it in Elvish or something? He's like, no, it's in the black speech, which I will not utter here.
I love that. He's just like, I ain't going there, bro.
Yeah. But in the common tongue, it says, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. This is it. This is the Ring of Power. This is the ring.
Call to adventure.
This is the ring that Sauron forged in the fires of Mount Doom. This is that ring.
It's in your little hidey hole, bro.
and Frodo's like, okay, we'll hide it somewhere, and then we'll never talk about it again, and that'll be fine. It's like, well, actually, unfortunately, so remember that guy? Remember the gun of the drug addict guy that your uncle talked about, Gollum? So I couldn't get him. The enemy got him, and they tortured him. And he said two things, Shire Baggins. And he's like, oh, shit. Like, this is bad. I don't want to have any. I'm just a hobbit. A hobbit. I like smoking weed. I like drinking ale. And I like hanging out with my friend Sam and going to the bar and trying to get him to marry this girl that he likes. I don't want to have to, like, destroy this ring.
I'm a wingman, bro. I'm not the man.
I mean, seriously, kind of, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, that's really, like, his
and he's
his
so
life.
Young, too. I feel like Frodo's supposed to be so young, and Elijah Wood just has this sweet little innocent face.
Yeah, he has an angelic face.
He has such an angelic little face, and it's just so... It really is like a loss of innocence for Frodo.
I mean, it destroyed his freaking life. It destroyed his life. It destroyed his life. Like, he could have had a nice little cute life where he was, you know... And he was going to inherit this massive house.
Yeah, he was sad.
And it was great. His life was going to be really great.
He had a good thing going, man.
Yeah, and he was going to inherit everything from Bilbo. Bilbo had tons of money. He had this he basically had the biggest house in the Shire. His life was set, but now he got this freaking ring.
Those damn Call to Adventures. How dare you? Should have let it go to voicemail, bro.
Yeah, so then Frodo offers it to Gandalf, and he's like, no, I will not. I don't want it. Don't tempt me, Frodo. Because with the ring, I would want to do good, but through me, it would do unspeakable evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gandalf, and then another thing, Sam is there. Sam was eavesdropping, and they take him out. Like, what'd you hear? I didn't hear. I wasn't dropping no eaves, sir. I just heard something about a Dark Lord and the end of the world, and some stuff like that.
Yeah, nothing too crazy,
I mean, nothing I haven't heard in the bar before.
We talk about the end of the world all the time in the Shire, man. It's like, obviously.
So basically, Gandalf instructs Frodo to go to Bree, to go to this inn, the Prancing Pony, where he'll meet them. And Sam is going to tag along with him because he was eavesdropping. And then they go on their little journey. And then we get this. So in an extended, there's a scene that they cut from the theatrical. Like Sam and Frodo, they're on their journey and they're like out in the woods and they see these elves singing as they're basically leaving Middle Earth. They're going to go go off some. It's kind of, again, like they don't really talk about this stuff like in detail in this film.
No, but it's
Or
pretty
any-
significant
Yeah.
with what the elves are doing. Like they're going to the Undying Lands, man. They're not coming back. It's the end
They're
of
not
the,
coming back.
it's the end of the elves. Like
It's the end of magic in this world in a lot of ways. And they're really going to heaven.
Yeah, essentially.
Effectively, they're going to heaven. They're going with their God, the God who created this universe. Which, seems okay.
It's like a sweet fucking deal.
Yeah. So Gandalf, he goes to Isengard, seeking help from his mentor Saruman.
I love how confident Gandalf is too when he's like, "I'll go to the leader of my order. He'll know what to do."
He'll know what to do. Oh,
like,
he will know what to do.
So confident, and that's what makes. I think the reason why Gandalf is so confident that Saruman will help, it makes the betrayal, because we don't really see Saruman up until this point. You know what I mean? Like we don't really have any context for who he is, but Gandalf's confidence and trust, makes it, the betrayal like a little bit more, maybe not shocking, but just kind of like, oh, that sucks. You were his bro, man.
Yeah, and he's, I feel like they call him Saruman the White,
and
he's supposed to be like the most powerful, the most intelligent, the most everything.
Yeah, and we associate the color white with good. We don't associate it with evil necessarily.
Yeah.
But there's some little giveaways. First of all, he's played by Christopher Lee, so that should be a dead fucking giveaway right there. Also a great voice. And his staff that looks... I never trust Christopher Lee.
Yeah. What's funny too, so Christopher Lee, I think he knew J.R.R. Tolkien or something like that.
He either met him when he was very young, because Christopher Lee was old as fuck. But he had a crazy... I want a movie about Christopher Lee, honestly.
Yeah, he's incredible, yeah.
But he read the books like once a year.
Yeah, he was a big into Tolkien. He was big into Tolkien. And I think that he had also wanted to be Gandalf. But
he could have been. I think he definitely could have been. But he's so good at Sauron.
It's kind of interesting because he gets sort of typecast as this like a certain kind of villain, like almost like a Bond villain. I believe he was a Bond villain.
I think he was a Bond villain. He was also James Bond in real life too. So
Yeah, well, I mean, he had an incredible life, honestly, and he's so good, honestly.
He's phenomenal. And again, there's little giveaways. His staff looks very menacing. It's very not mechanical or anything like that. But how Gandalf's is very earthy? It looks like it's literally like a chunk of wood with like a crystal in it. You don't get much more earthier than that.
Yeah.
And then you have Sauron's, it's just kind of like this ball, and it's just kind of like these points on it. And it almost looks like one of the towers. And it's just very... very menacing. Very menacing.
Yeah. So Saruman tells Gandalf that Sauron has regained much of his power, and that they have a rising army in the east. He's like, the hour is late, and all this stuff. And then he unveils the Palantir stone, one of the Seeing Stones. And Gandalf's like, "What are you doing, dude? We don't know, we don't know who's on the other end of the line.
We don't know who's on the other end of the line, but it's the same game, a telephone, bro. You can't just start going for the juice every time you want to know what's going on. And
then he covers it, and it's like, yeah. Again, we get this great.
I think I know who's on the other end of the line.
Shit. Yeah. And he's like, you don't understand. The Nine they've already left Minas Morgul. They're coming, and they're going to take the ring from the Hobbit. And he said something earlier, and he was like, oh yeah, the ring was in the Shire the whole time. It's like, oh, your love of the halflings has clouded your judgment. Said some shit like that, and it's like,
okay, those are my friends. Let's not use the halfling thing, bro.
Yeah.
Seems a little racist to me.
Right. But you see his mentality. He's so, he sees these things as others and as lesser.
Yes, exactly.
And then he's like, it would be wise if we joined with him, Gandalf. There is no resisting. We have to become one with him. And what did he say? He says like when did
Saruman the Wise trade reason for
for
madness?
madness? He's
Oh,
like,
I love that fucking thing. I love it. I remember my dad saw this scene for the first time. He's like, those old dudes are really going at each other because they fuck each other up.
They fuck each other up. It's like
Yeah.
so violent.
It's so violent. You have chosen You have chosen the way of pain.
The pain. And he's like lifting him up the thing.
Woo, woo, woo. It's like, I love that. Like, you've traded reason for madness and you have chosen the way of pain. And it's just,
Yeah, like you could have joined me willingly, but instead you chose the way of pain. Yeah, I love
the
that.
emphasis on like the word madness, and then the emphasis from Christopher Lee on the word pain, and it's just like, he's gonna show you some pain.
Yeah. Oh man, it's amazing. So then we pick up with Frodo and Sam, and they're out in the farmland. Farmer. Was it Farmer Maggot or something like that?
Something gross. I think it's Farmer Maggot.
Farmer Maggot's crop. They're out there, and then I think Sam's like, if I go one step further, this is the furthest I've ever gone from the Shire. And he's like, hey, this is what we got to do. We're on an adventure. We're gonna go a lot further. And so they meet Merry and Pippin, and they're stealing food and stuff from the crop. And then we see him, come out, and then they run away. And then Frodo can kind of feel that there's like something is coming, and like a ringwraith is stalking them. And then we get this great shot, like the dolly zoom that they do in this, like oh my god, it's like unbelievable. It's like unbelievable. And he's like, dude, we got to get down and hide now. So they hide, and then the ringwraith is like right near them, and it's really creepy. This scene is really
very scary. It's so, and like the way that like he like the ringwraith touches like the dead tree, and everything is just like abandoned ship. Like even the bugs are like, no, bro, this is not cool. And it's out of there's a few shots out of all of these movies that just stand out to me so much, and the shot of the three hobbits just huddling there and terrified, and this beast of a thing is just like, ugh.
Yeah, I think this was one of the first scenes that they shot, and it's really effective.
True.
It's very scary. You can see that again, the horror stuff. And this was definitely a scene that is very similar to like that animated film that we talked about. And there's a couple things that were similar. I mean, it's kind of weird. They got into a beef actually. Like the animator was like, "Oh, he stole a bunch of stuff from me. I hate him." Yeah, but I don't know what to say about
Maybe
that.
Maybe he's paying homage to you, bro. Maybe he's like, "Hey, this is where I was inspired from."
Yeah, but it's like super creepy, and like you can even see like he's about to like put the ring on.
Yeah, and then, he's like,
I think Merry he like throws something to distract them, and then they run off.
And the thing is, you can't see the ringwraith's face either, so it's just this black, and you kind of project whatever like fear you have of what it might look like onto it. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
Even the horse looks dead. It looks like a zombie.
And this is a great shot where you can see that its heels are bleeding because it's been riding for so long. Yeah, it's horrific.
It's messed up.
And so they're like basically kind of running around at night, trying to escape. And they're like, hey, those riders were looking for someone that, and is there something that you have that they want? And Frodo like kind of doesn't say anything.
He's like, I just gotta get out of town, man.
Yeah, exactly. So they evade them, and they're able to get across on this ferry that they can't pass on. And so that kind of gives them enough time to get to the end without being killed by these dudes. So they arrive at the inn. They're kind of like, so they use different names. Like they kind of like don't want to say who they are. They use like different names. Like he says, "Oh, I'm Underhill," or whatever. And he asks, "Oh, have you seen this guy Gandalf?" Like, "Oh yeah, I remember him. I haven't seen him in 6 months." So he's not there, which is a problem. So they're kind of just there waiting for him to arrive. So then Pippin, being Pippin, he says, "Oh, Frodo, I know Frodo's over there." Blah 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 blah. It's like, "No, don't say my name," or whatever. And so then Frodo ends up falling, and then the ring goes on his hand. He disappears. This guy Strider sees it happen. And when he puts on the ring, all the ringwraiths are like, "Oh shit, he's there." Okay. And he sees the eye for the first time, the Eye of Sauron.
Doesn't it say something too? Like, I see you.
I
Like,
see you.
Oh, it's so great, man. Oh.
What's so great too is like, again, like it's just these small things, the sound design, right? Because it says these things, and it's also speaking in multiple languages to him.
Yeah.
I believe it does like the black speech.
Yeah, he's
as well
speaking. It's like multiple voices at
Yeah.
once. It's very
Yeah.
strange. They're
And
all
it's
like
just-
kind of overlapping each other.
It's this really ominous whisper too, because it's like not super loud. Like the pitch is kind of high, but it's not loud. It's like, I see you.
Yeah.
I'm coming for you. And it's like,
Ugh.
fuck this, fuck, you know?
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. So then, what's his name grabs him, Strider or whatever, grabs him. Like, hey, dude, like, you know, there's a lot of people who have a lot of rings that can do stuff. Like, I can make myself disappear, but not like what you did. And so you're calling a little bit too much attention to yourself. And so then they, you know, he takes them somewhere. We get this really cool scene where they stab, where Ringwraiths stab some beds, and they cut it to where we think they're getting stabbed, like the hobbits are getting stabbed.
Which is like another kind of like horror thriller fake out kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know that, like, and this guy made a comment about the CGI ring falling on Frodo's finger.
It's very
well
good.
shot.
Very well done.
You know that they're not going to get stabbed. Like, you feel like, okay, they're probably not going to get stabbed, but you're still like, this is really like, especially the way that they go in. They're so silent. The way they go into the rooms,
and
like
there's like this mist and shit. It's very scary. Even though you know, like, if they got stabbed, then like, what's the story, kind of a thing. But it's also the viciousness of these ringwraiths. It's violent without there being any blood, and nobody dies. They're just like,
yeah, they're stabbing and stabbing and stabbing.
It's so violent. Like, we're not just gonna go in there and cut their fucking throat. We're gonna, like, they're 3 feet tall. What would be left? You know what I mean? Like, there would be nothing left. There's nothing left of the bed. Like, it's all just
they flip those beds over. They are pissed off. Like, it's really scary.
It's very violent. And there's not a drop of blood.
No.
Except for that poor bugger who got crushed to death.
Oh, dude, yeah. They straight up, like, bust down that wall and run that dude over to get into there.
Flatten like a pancake.
But I forget who it was, but someone like that, you know, the really high pitched, like, scream, like, ah!
The Wilhelm scream?
No, like the sound that the Nazgul make.
Oh, yeah.
Someone had to do that sound. Someone did. I forget who it was, but like they were looking, and I think it was like one of the writers or something like that. She did the sound.
Huh.
Yeah, it was something.
That's
I forget what it was, but she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll try it," and they did it, and it was like perfect. And it's like that's another one of these like super iconic sounds.
Yeah,
like the way, because it's unsettling.
It's very unsettling. It's awful. It's just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. So, and then basically, Aragorn, or Strider, as they know him at this point, tells them like, oh yeah, they're the Nazgul, the Ringwraiths. They were the great kings of men that were given the rings by Sauron the Deceiver, which then corrupted them and then turned them into what they are now. So then they go off and they're like, you know, they're all basically going to Rivendell together. And the next day they're like, you know, they eat some food and then they're about to leave. And Pippin is like, oh, well, what about second breakfast?
You already had it. I don't think he knows about second breakfast, Pip.
Yeah. It's like, what about 11 C's or luncheon or afternoon tea or dinner or supper?
It's like, what? I don't think so, Pip. Like, I like how Merry is just very adaptable. Merry's adapting very, very well. Like, he's the first one who notices of the two that, like, Frodo, you're hiding something. He's not stupid.
Yeah,
he's definitely not stupid.
No.
Merry's very intelligent. He might be a hoodlum, but
he
he's not
is a little
He's got
hoodlum,
street smart. I think Merry has street smarts. Pippin's just kind of a dope. I'm sorry.
He
I'm
is a dope,
going to actually trade. Pippin can die. Merry can live. I'm fine with that. So, because honestly, Pippin's kind of a fuck up. I'm talking like he
is. He is. I mean, so, he fucks up a lot of stuff, like, as we're gonna come to later.
I think out of most of the hobbits, Merry's very adaptable. He's like, okay, we're not having 11sies. I'm fine with that. I'll just have a snack.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, he's a little. They're both just little troublemakers.
Mhm.
And yeah. Pippin is an idiot, a fool. Like I love there's this line like when he takes the Palantir for some reason, and then Gandalf was like there was no lying in Pippin, a fool, but a honest fool he was.
And it
He's
just
an honest
he
fool.
needs longer to get to his courage. He needs a little bit more time than maybe the rest of the hobbits, than anyone else. Because by the time even sure, Pippin's sweet. I'm not saying he's not sweet. I'm saying he's kind of a dope.
He is a dope.
I've known plenty of dopes who are some of the nicest people I've ever met. But he needs longer. His character arc needs just a little bit more time. Because Merry's ready to go into battle. He's like Eowyn's like suiting him up, and he's just like, and Eomer is just like, I don't doubt the strength of his heart, just the length of his arm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that's a genuine concern he should have. But Pippin, he openly tells Gandalf in I think Two Towers, I'm scared. Like I didn't think it was going to end this way. And
it's very scary.
He needs comfort. He needs a little bit more, a little bit more emotional support, because he's definitely not ready for anything.
Yeah, I mean, this. None of them really asked for this, right? I mean, they like Merry and Pippin. They spend most of their time stealing pies from windowsills and doing fart jokes and singing in bars. Like they're great at singing in bars.
Doing it all over again. They're the Hangover crew. They're not. They weren't ready for this.
No. I mean, they like the simple life. But yeah, they all got kind of roped into this situation. But like you said, Merry is very adaptable to it. Like he basically kind of saved him in that situation with the ring wraith under the tree. So then we pick up things at Isengard, where like we see he allows Sauron into the Palantir, and then he's like, "What would you want me to do, my lord?" He says, "Build me an army worthy of Mordor." And then we get this cool montage where like one of the goblins or whatever comes up, is like, what does the eye want, my lord? It's like, oh, we have to build an army. And so they start industrializing this whole area, where it was all very wooded and very kind of, there's a lot of trees. They rip down all the trees, they dig down, and they build all these forges and stuff. And it's really in furnaces, and it's really cool. And what's again, and this is another thing too, because like this is like what Tolkien was trying to kind of like sort of talk about in terms of like thematically, like how industrialization can be so destructive.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're destroying nature to build machines of war to just kill other people, and it's just like, this is the real downside of the industrialization process, and we're seeing it right here. All this nature that's been there for hundreds or maybe thousands of years, destroyed.
Yeah, uprooting trees that have been there since before man had written a single fucking word. Like it's just, it's a loss of our natural habitat, not just like, the animals or anything like that, but our natural habitat too. We came from the fucking trees. We were monkeys once.
Yeah, like, swinging in the trees.
We have an attachment to that. It's ingrained in us, whether you love living in a city or in the country, whatever, we have a natural call, I feel like, to explore and to be in nature. That's why people feel better when they go to like a national park, or when they go to just a walk in a trail or something like that. That's why it's important to touch grass, guys. Yeah. It's healthy for you. It's good. That's why some people, when they go to places like, who have lived in like a city, go to places like Colorado or Wyoming, their body has to adjust to the fact that it's clean air. It's like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to not breathe in shit and smog all day long. Like, it's just, I can definitely appreciate, especially now that I'm older and I understand the themes, I so appreciate what Tolkien was trying to say. This loss of just beauty. And it's tragic. And I'm sure he saw it in his own personal life with places he loved. I'm sure he did. And I'm sure it was just heartbreaking for someone who's so maybe a conservationist in their own way to see it just fade away and be cruelly, without hesitation, destroyed.
And so at the pinnacle of the Isengard Tower. Was it Orthanag? Something like that. So Gandalf is like up there, and he's been basically trapped up there by Saruman, and he's watching them doing all this building and stuff, and he can see all the fires and see everything that's happening down there, and it's raining, and it's very ominous. So the party, they go to Weathertop, and so they're taking shelter there, and Aragorn leaves them there for the night, and so Frodo goes to sleep. He wakes up in the night, and these freaking idiots, they built a fire, and they're making like sausages or something.
And the sausages look pretty fucking good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's Sam loves to cook. Sam seems like he's a very good cook.
I would love for Sam to cook for me. Oh my god, he brought like salt from the Shire.
Yeah, he brought all this stuff.
So
yeah.
sweet.
Oh, I can't leave my salt, Mr.
He
Mr.
defends
Frodo.
himself with a pan at one
Yeah,
point.
he does. And he's better with the pan than he is with the sword.
Like, I think I'm getting the hang of this. He is better with the pan. The pan is mightier than the sword.
Yeah. And so he's like, put it out. You just put it out. And then it's too late. Like, they've seen them. And they surrounded them. Like, it's not like they were all coming from one vicinity. They come from every single point. And there's even a shot where you kind of see them coming through the mist.
Yes.
And they're like, oh,
and they're
shit.
kind of floating too.
Yeah.
The camera does a very good job. Like, you see them walking sometimes, but it's almost like this kind of weird floatiness that they do, where it's just
like they're a ghost.
Yeah, I think they're some of the best villains in movies. Like the kind of cannon fodder villains that you see in films sometimes. Like, these are really good ones.
Yeah. So yeah, they get swarmed. They're like trying to defend Frodo, but they have no real chance. And so Sam's like, get back, you devils, and they literally push him aside.
Yeah,
they
like,
push him aside.
Just get it.
They then push aside Merry and Pippin.
I know.
And then
they try to get really close to him too, and they're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Which again, you're seeing the bravery of the hobbits right there too. Like, they're
like they could have been
completely
killed.
Outnumbered. They were definitely going to be killed.
Yeah. And so Frodo puts on the ring, and he sees them in their kind of true form, and it's, they look like old, bearded kind of. Yeah.
I love that.
The dude tries to take the ring from him, and he kind of won't let him take it, so he gets stabbed in the shoulder. And then Aragorn arrives, and he comes with the. So we talked about this a little bit off air, but Viggo Mortensen was not the first person that they cast as Aragorn. They had originally cast Stuart Townsend, who had been kind of big, and he was in, what was it, Queen of the Damned, right?
Queen of the Damned,
some other stuff.
Some other stuff. He was definitely, I think, on his way. He was definitely on his way. Yeah.
And Viggo had been in some weird stuff. Like, the thing that I remember the most of him from this time was, what was that? What was that movie where Christopher Walken plays Lucifer? Do you remember that?
The Prophecy.
The Prophecy, yeah. Prophecy.
He played I don't think Chris. What's his name? Viggo Mortensen played Satan. He was Satan.
Oh, he was okay. Yeah,
he has a very small part, but he's very effective.
He's very effective.
That movie's fucking weird, and there's some shit that happens in it I'm not cool with. But it's a very weird movie, and Christopher Walken is fantastic as an angel. I forget what angel he's playing.
I think it's Gabriel.
I think he might be Gabriel. He's pissed, whatever. But he's really, really great. He has got a great monologue at one point, and it's just fantastic. But Viggo Mortensen played Satan for 10 minutes of screen time.
And Viggo also in Carlito's Way, has an incredible scene. Like, he's in it. Carlito's Way is a really good movie. It's a very 90s gangster movie. It feels a lot like sort of Goodfellas and that kind of stuff. It's very good. I like it a lot. But Viggo's in it. He has one scene in that movie. It is phenomenal. It's fucking phenomenal. So he's been kind of a well-known actor, but he was never as big as what this movie made him.
No.
This movie made him very big. And he only kind of took this role because his son was like, "Oh, they want you to be in the Lord of the Rings? Like, you have to do it. You have to do it."
I love when I hear stories like that. It's like when Richard Harris's granddaughter was like, "No, you have to be Dumbledore."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Like, there was that's sweet.
There were especially Harry Potter. There were so many of those where Ralph Fiennes had the same kind of thing, where it was like, do I have to play the villain again? I played a Nazi. I've done this. I've done that. Do I have to? And someone was like, you you don't understand.
You don't understand, Ray. You really don't. And we
You
really
have
don't
to
want to
be in
ask your brother because he's not that great.
No,
Sorry.
you have to be in. So, and this was the first scene that they shot with Vigo. And so I remember there was some story where he was like, yeah, we shot the scene and we showed it to the executives and they were like a little apprehensive, but they were like, once they saw the scene, they're like, okay, yeah, he's the right fit. He's the right guy. So yeah, Aragorn fights off all of these ring wraiths by himself. And they all go run.
Actually,
Really
real
cool.
quick question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to backtrack too much.
Oh,
What
it's fine.
is the reason why they replaced Stuart Townsend though?
It
Was he
didn't
just
fit.
not? It just didn't look good on
It didn't
screen.
look.
It
It
wasn't
didn't
working.
work.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I wasn't
working.
sure if he was being a prima donna
No.
or something like that, or
No, nothing wrong with him. It just they felt like he was not the right. They felt it was the wrong casting.
okay,
They
fair
felt
enough.
like he was the wrong casting, and so yeah, I mean, I think they definitely made the correct choice in getting Viggo Mortensen. I mean, he is incredible in this
Wow.
movie.
Like I think
Incredible.
I said it off the air. He has a really good edge. You know,
Yeah.
he can be vulnerable, he can be edgy, he can be dark, he can be
Yeah,
heroic.
yeah.
And, romantic too.
Yeah.
His scenes with Arwen,
He's very approachable. Yeah,
I buy that romance so much because the actors just look so. I believe it. Like I just believe it.
and he's such a rugged looking dude. You know,
and he's rugged.
He looks like he's been out in the forest for.
He does.
years.
He does look like because he is. He's a fucking Dunedain shit, man. He's been out there. He's not. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't have one place. You know. He is the wild, as it were.
Saying that Stuart Townsend was too young. I think it's just it's
Yeah.
also the look. He
The
looks like we were talking about this off air, but he was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, another massive bomb, unfortunately. But he's very good in that playing. Who is he in that?
Dorian.
Film? Yeah, he plays Dorian Gray.
Yeah.
He's great. He's really great because the look. He looks so young. He looks like
owns it.
Yeah,
I think his prop is a sword that doubles as a cane. He fucking owns that prop.
Yeah, and
he does it like it's
and
great.
like the character is like gay, but he does that in a way that's not stereotypical. Where you're like, okay, yeah, I get that he's a gay dude who's lived for 100 years, but it's not like done in a way where it's like,
what Dorian Gray's gay?
Oh yeah.
But he's into like the vampire chick.
Is
he just using? Oh my god.
Yeah. No. Like yeah. I feel like the character is gay in that movie too, and he's definitely gay in the book. Yeah. Or bisexual, something like that. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. What? No. What? I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, this is just blowing my freaking mind right now.
No, I mean Dorian Gray is like he's like a prototypical like gay character. And I'm pretty sure it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I feel like when I think about his performance, there's a couple of things that he does, like the way he moves, and there's even like a way that he talks to the vampire lady, like when he's stabbing her. It's like, oh, we could do this all day. Like the way he says it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Like you don't have to tell me that the character's gay. I see that the character's gay.
Okay. Wow. That just I'll rewatch it now.
See, now you're gonna watch Leaving Extraordinary Gentlemen. This like ridiculously. It's not terrible.
I just thought he had swag. Like that's cool. Like I'm fine with it. Like I think that's great that I'm just kind of honestly just a little dumbfounded that I never picked up on that.
Well, I didn't pick up on it either when I was a kid. I certainly didn't. I certainly did not.
I watched this movie like a year ago, dude. Like like, wow. Okay.
It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, that's
I also do really like that movie. I hate it, but I love it.
It's such a great idea. So this was another. So Alan Moore wrote these books, these graphic novels, and they were butchered. And like the whole idea behind what he was doing is that there's all these really old novels that were just like that are in the public domain. He's like, hey, why don't we just take all these characters and put them together? It's sort of a Justice
League. It sounds great. Yeah, like put Dracula and Captain Nemo and Dorian Gray and all these other guys. Like, Moriarty is the bad guy.
Moriarty's the bad guy.
Like, it's a fantastic idea.
Fantastic.
And I just don't think movies like that can. Well, maybe they could because Penny Dreadful was really good and it had the similar concept. Van Helsing, I think, is even in an episode of Penny Dreadful. Yeah. Maybe it could work nowadays. I don't know. But I love the idea of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. Captain Nemo is one of my favorite characters in that movie.
Yeah.
He's such a badass.
And I like that they got a real, like, you know, an Indian actor. They didn't like try to like make some white dude.
In the time it was made, that could have easily been a white guy.
You know, someone said like, "Oh, why don't we get blah 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 blah?" And it's like,
why don't we get Tom British Cruise dude to play like Captain Nemo? It's like,
no, don't do that.
Please don't. Actually, no. In the time it was made, I'm genuinely shocked they didn't get a white guy in brown face. Yeah. Genuinely. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack too much.
No, it's fine. I mean, I
kind of. I don't know if you saw my mind, like literally going like.
So another unrelated thing to that. So they wanted Sean Connery to be Gandalf instead of So instead of doing that film, he did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And you know what happened after that film came out?
He retired.
He
retired. Which is a damn shame that that's the movie he retired on. That's pretty unfortunate. It's more in his vein, though. Gandalf is not in Sean Connery's vein. I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
He is more and get him the double-barreled shotgun.
Yep. And his character had a real edge in that movie on some scenes, and he's the lead in that film.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he would do that.
It is. I mean, he's phoning it in most of the time, but like.
Well, the movie just. I remember someone was talking about like the guy who directed the film. He had some real interesting credits to his name. He'd done some interesting films. He'd even done some interesting stuff in VFX. That film fucked up his career.
Yeah, it's really and even the young guy who's supposed to be like kind of like the prototypical like adopted son type character for Sean Connery. I have not seen him in a single fucking thing.
No, that movie. Seen
that actress who played Lucy in a single fucking thing. The guy who played.
It's tragic.
The guy we should do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think we should do it. The guy who played the only actor I can think of who actually kept acting was the guy who was Jekyll and Hyde. I have actually seen him. He has continuously worked. I don't know why. Also, there's some really good practical effects with the Jekyll and Hyde. There's some really good practical.
There's some great,
good, but there's some good practical effects.
Oh, you know what else is good? That car. Remember that car that what was that? That like Lamborghini with the like 8 wheels. Remember that?
I think I know which one you're talking about. It's insane. Nemo's got some cool
sexy,
shit. Like it's a good.
No, I love the whole thing. Like the Nautilus, the way that they depict the Nautilus is like. It's everything you want. You're like, whoa, like this feels like a real world that they've with all these ideas. There's all this cool stuff. It feels established.
The characters seem to know who they are, with there still being some ability to have some character development. I love the Invisible Man. Yeah. Like he's got some cool dialogue. Like when they actually like he shows up in the middle of winter somewhere and he's buck ass naked. He's like, yeah, I'm freezing my ass off right now. So if we could go inside, that'd be great. Like they actually acknowledge the fact that like he can't act, he's freaking naked.
Yeah.
Like it's just wow, we just
that film, but like that film's really interesting. That film's really interesting. And you can see there's so many good ideas, but it was just made at the wrong time, unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely. Made at the wrong time.
The absolutely wrong time.
Yeah.
I feel like it would make an interesting TV show. But like what's cool about I know that there's some kind of rights stuff maybe, but like what's so cool about what Alan Moore was doing is like all of those characters are in the public domain. Mm-hmm. You could do it. I could do it. Any one of us could make. We can't call it the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but we can create a world where Sherlock Holmes meets Alan Quartermain meets, Captain Nemo. Because they're just characters that exist out there in the ether for people to do what they want with them.
And I want frickin' Timothy Dalton to be Alan Quartermain. I want it. Do it.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be really cool.
Timothy Dalton's just like amazing. So.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time before something like that happens. Because I remember there was some talk about like Sherlock Holmes was like another one of these characters that's kind of. I think next year Sherlock Holmes is like almost completely in the public domain. I think right now there's only like 2 stories that are in the public domain. And so like there was a whole thing with like they did the Enola Holmes movies. They got sued over that. And so the resolution of that suit was that there's some depictions of Sherlock Holmes that exist in later books. And so if you have, so like, it's so weird. They said, oh, well, your Sherlock Holmes in your movie is kind of nice, and so we're going to sue you for that because in later books that are not public domain, he's nice. Like that was literally the lawsuit. And so they kind of resolved it by saying, okay, these books are in the public domain, these other ones are not, and so you can't do anything that depicts Sherlock Holmes like this in the later books. But those are in the public domain, I think, starting in like 2023 or 2024, something like that.
Okay.
So anyway, all these characters are going to be free out into the world, and people can do what they want with them, and you can make a Sherlock Holmes horror movie where Sherlock Holmes kills a bunch of people. I don't know, whatever.
I want to see a horror film of The Hound of the Baskervilles because you can make a really horror Sherlock Holmes movie out of that.
Yeah. Okay, so where we left off, he fights off these guys at Mountaintop, at Weathertop, and so he got stabbed, and so Frodo's dying, and so then in the middle of the forest they meet Eowyn, right? It's Eowyn. Arwen. Sorry.
They're very much the same. I do. The same thing.
I know. And so Arwen takes Frodo, and they go run off to try and get to Rivendell as quick as possible because she can get there faster. So yeah, they're running, and we get this cool montage of her running, and the ring race like grabbing for him, like
I love that shot of like Frodo's like he's getting all zombified and shit, and he's just like and then the ring wraith just reaches out with that creepy metal hand. Ugh. And she's like, oh hell no.
Yeah. So
she has to put magic on her horse too.
This guy wants Daniel Craig for Alan Quartermain. I like your idea, Timothy Dalton.
Timothy, watch Penny Dreadful and tell me, Clark.
And so then once they get to Rivendell, Arwen uses this magical spell to like create a giant wave that takes them out. The wave becomes horses.
Come and claim it.
Yeah. I love that. So, this is like also a scene that kind of pissed off a lot of book readers because apparently I think Elrond is the one who casts a spell in the book.
Oh, get the fuck over
it, bro.
Get the fuck over
I feel the exact same way. It's like,
who
cares? It's a great moment for her.
It's a great moment for her. She deserves it. Elrond's in the first freaking scene being a badass.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't come at me with that petty picking shit. Okay?
It's super petty. It's like, dude, who cares?
Just nitpick over somewhere else, please.
So this guy doesn't like that line of dialogue. Like, he doesn't like I like that line. I think it's fine.
Yeah,
like she's like she's really cool in that scene, and she's like saved his life in a very epic way.
Yeah, she's got that cool cut on her,
she got
on her cheek. She's got the sword. She's on the horse. Like, it's like that is one of the most fantasy things I can picture is like an elf on a horse with a sword, and she's about to like fight off these ring wraith shit. Like, that is epic fantasy shit right there.
And the thing, like, the more you watch, the more you kind of notice it. But I do like how they were so smart in having these, because like basically any wide shot with a Hobbit, they use like basically a child actor as a stand-in. And so she's holding this like basically a child on this horse, and she's like, stay away. It's just so cool.
Well, the Hobbits like are supposed to look so childlike. They're very vulnerable, and especially with the state that Frodo's in when she's like protecting him.
He's half dead.
Yeah, he's basically dead. Like, he's being zombified.
Being zombified. Absolutely.
Oh my god! When the river washes the ring race away, and she's like cradling him.
Yeah.
And she's like crying, like she's genuinely upset. She doesn't know this kid from Adam, and she's just like, I love that. That's so sweet. It just shows her heart. It shows her goodness and her compassion. That even though she doesn't know this freaking kid, she's just like, like what Grace has given me, let it pass to him. Like, I think I fucked up that line, but still.
Yeah. So then they take him. We get this weird montage where it's like all white and he's seeing all these faces and stuff. He's
like Elrond's face like right.
Like, come back. Don't die. Just don't die, okay? We almost got you. Just don't die.
You plan on having dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour?
Yeah. I really hate that man.
Sorry, I had to.
And then he wakes up out of bed, and then Gandalf is right there next to him, waiting. It's like, oh, you're here. And he's basically like, what happened? Why didn't I see you at the end? It's like, oh, I got preoccupied with something else. And then we get a flashback to like how he got off and like he's up there being tortured by Saruman.
He's not having a good time.
No, he's not having a good time. And he's like, I really like that. You know that shot like where they like he throws him over the edge.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's so well done because you can tell that something is like holding him up. You know?
Yeah, like a force is like there
force.
holding him up. Yeah.
But you can't really see it, so it feels magical.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And so movie magic, baby. You're gonna be a star.
We had seen in the previous version, in a previous thing in the scene where Gandalf like he saw a butterfly and he like grabbed the butterfly and he basically did some magic, spoke to it and then let it go. And then he sees the butterfly flying again. He jumps off the tower and an eagle captures him and he flies to Rivendell. And yeah, that's how we got back. So
baby got back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like the first time we kind of see what the eagles do too as well in this film. So and the eagles they're kind of like angels. They just kind of show up, they help people and they but they don't really intervene too much. We don't see them a lot in this narrative.
No, they're benevolent, but you have to ask for help. They're not just going to probably show up and do something. They need to be called.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, cause like in the original books, like they talk. Like in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, like the eagles would talk and they would like, there's a whole hierarchy, like even it's like a king of the eagles and all this stuff.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
There's probably a lineage for them too.
Yeah. Oh, well, this one sired these ones and blah, blah, blah. And then,
this one fought at that battle with Morgoth and he ate a Balrog.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, in the Battle of the Five Armies, like the eagles show up and they, I mean, that whole thing kind of happens off screen in the book, but they're there. So Frodo wakes up and he, everyone's kind of happy. He meets Elrond. They're in Rivendell. Rivendell's like like the way they depict Rivendell is so fucking cool in this film.
Like,
I
want to go there.
And you can tell it's like kind of like in this little, almost like if you're walking in a mountain and then there's like this little ravine and a crevice, like that's where they put the city. And it's so cool. He meets all his friends. He meets Sam. He meets Merry. He meets Pippin. They have a nice little kind of like, oh, you're still alive, He sees Bilbo. Bilbo has aged significantly.
Yeah.
He's like
kind
an
of
old
catching
man
up
now.
with him.
Mm-hmm. And Frodo talks to Sam. He's like, yeah, I've done what I need to do. I want to leave the ring here. I'm ready to go home. And Elrond is like talking. He's like, oh, well, the ring, he's been really strong in sort of beating back the ring's power. Almost like he's already implying something. And Elrond's like, basically, the state of the world is really bad for us right now. My people are leaving this whole freaking planet. Human beings are scattered and fighting amongst themselves. Our best ally, Saruman, has turned. So we have no friends.
We're up a creek, Gandalf, and you want to tell me that I need to place my hope in men?
Yeah, he's like, no, men.
Yeah.
And then we get this flashback to like the battle that defeated Sauron. So we see him get killed, see his hand get chopped off. Isildur takes the ring. Elrond says, hey, come with me. And then they go up the mountain. They go into the mouth and they're like, he's like, cast it into the fire.
He's
like, no. And he just walks away. Yeah, Isildur. Evil was allowed to endure. The line of kings was broken, but there's one who could reclaim it. Oh, he's chosen exile. And then we see Aragorn is like reading a book as Boromir shows up, and they're looking at the sword Narsil, and they created this like, I think there's like a painting, right? There's a painting of
there's a really cool like tapestry, and it's like Isildur's like, he's got the sword, and I think the sword has a name too, and probably its own lineage as well.
Yeah, I believe it's called Narsil at this point. I think it's then renamed later when they reforge it.
Mm. Yeah, no, the shards are really cool. It's pretty neat how they lay it all out.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really. I mean, that's 1,000-year-old sword or whatever, something like that. I don't know. It's really old. It's great. So he like, what's his name? Boromir cuts his hand on it. Like, oh, it's still sharp, and he drops it, and then, Aragorn puts it back, and him and Eowyn, whatever. I'm gonna keep getting it wrong. Arwen. They have this like little chat about like, you're not like him. You won't fall to temptation too. And so again, we're kind of getting the idea that his whole arc is that he's afraid of assuming power because he thinks that he might have that same weakness.
Yeah.
That his,
which I think is very human. I feel like we at least my family has a great significance on the past and what our parents did, what their parents did, and everything like that. And I feel like it's just kind of one of those things where you see very specific traits passed on that shouldn't necessarily be, kind of like it's like embedded in us to make the same mistakes. It's kind of embedded in us to be like, just like our parents, because that's the only template that we have, kind of a thing. So
why didn't he just throw him into
what, Clark?
the fire?
That's a very good question. I think it's because Elrond's just a good dude.
Well, I also think that he kind of saw it. Like, the other thing you have to kind of keep in mind too is like elves. First off, they see human beings as basically lesser, and they also like they have a more direct connection to what is God, and so it would almost be like saying, why didn't the angels stop human beings from sinning? Well, I mean,
not their job.
Yeah, exactly. And so at the end of the day, and when we pick up his story now, he's basically saying, I'm leaving this planet. I'm going to heaven.
It's not my fucking problem anymore.
It's not exactly. It's not his problem.
The choice that they made. Yeah. Like, not my problem, bro.
Because for them, it's like, if you decide that you guys want to be corrupted by power and live in tyranny, okay, who am I to tell human beings like they're a different race and they're just gonna go live their own life and move on and
yeah, because the best that the elves can do is offer counsel and help, and that's it. It's like, I can point you in the direction that I think you should go in, whether you choose to, like, they're like the parents of everybody else. It's like, this is my advice, take it or leave it. Okay, you're not gonna take it, and guess what? Everything is fucked up from it. I'm just gonna peace out. I'm gonna go retire.
Yeah, I mean, they have a they're a different species, and so they have a more direct connection with the God who created this world and this universe, and so it's not really their place to like make these decisions for human beings.
Generally when angels in the biblical text intervene, it's usually when they're being told to intervene. Very rarely do angels intervene on their own personal missions. And I could be totally wrong. I'm sure someone could think of an example. Lucifer is a big one. But Sauron's just Lucifer. Morgoth is just Lucifer. They're just different amalgamations of these biblical angels that fall. And literally, Morgoth is Lucifer Morningstar. He falls at the very beginning. What's the god's name in Lord of the Rings? I forget.
I forget. Yeah.
But he's literally bringing life into Middle Earth, and it's not even called Middle Earth at that point. It's flat as a freaking pancake, I think, at one point. It goes through all these different amalgamations, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck it up because I don't want to. Like, I'm gonna go do my own thing."
Yeah, and so he brings up that they fought at Helm's Deep, and that is true. We should also keep in mind that is a different tribe of elves that do the Helm's Deep.
Yes. You got your woodland elves. You got your
I don't think that Elrond, his tribe, they don't get involved at all.
No, it's the
in this war at all.
What's the place where Galadriel lives called?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think I have it written down when we get to there, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're completely different.
And by the way, and we'll talk about this. This is an extended version scene, but like, they didn't even want to get involved in letting them in to where they live when the Fellowship arrives. At first, they're like, "You need to leave. You bring great evil." And
you literally have evil afoot, like behind you, and that's bad for us.
And there's an extended scene where Aragorn is pleading, like he is begging and pleading with these guys, please let us in, please, like. So and he has a very good relationship with elves because he was raised with them, and so it took all of that for them to And yeah, I mean, it is true. Like they should have, just like we should have stopped Hitler at Munich.
Yeah.
But they just don't see themselves as taking that active of a part in the affairs of what are human beings, right?
Yeah, it's not,
Like
again,
these are human
it's
affairs
not,
for the most part.
it's not their problem. And yeah, I mean, yeah, throw that SOB in the lava and laugh.
Yeah.
Then where's your story?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and
there's no
and
story
also
then. Pointless.
also like this war is fought between human beings and these dark beings, basically. The elves do not, in the final battle that we see in, the Battle of Minas Tirith, there's no elves really involved in that.
Yeah, there's not a lot left. If any, you
Yeah.
got Legolas and maybe a few stragglers, but
Yeah.
like most of them die at Helm's Deep. Like there's a shot of like Aragorn just looking around at all of the dead elves, and it's like he kind of probably feels like this is my fault.
Yeah.
Like I just let all my friends and my brethren and my kin, like
Yeah.
people I've probably known forever. Like he's got that relationship with the captain of the guard. I forget his name.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, and then he sees that guy dying. He's just
he
like,
sees him die. Like
he's like, fuck. And there are not many elves left in the world, and they're all
there
leaving.
aren't. They're leaving. They're getting up and going. It's their time. Like their internal clock is ticking, man.
It's and that's, I think that's the other part of like this whole thing with Aragorn is like he understands that this is now a time where human beings have to take up the responsibility of making the right decisions.
Yes,
that's
it's
a big
time. Like
that's a big thing.
Your training wheels are coming off. You gotta just ride the bike. Like,
and there are gonna be some people like the freaking Steward of Gondor who's a total maniac and an idiot. Who's an idiot, and they're going to fuck things up. And it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. And so for the elves, they're like, this is your world now. This is your story. We're leaving.
Yeah.
You fight these battles because we fought, because they fought multiple battles. They fought a war against Morgoth. And then
they've given a lot. They don't need to give anymore. Like,
and then
in
he
my
tells
opinion, the elves don't need to do that anymore.
He tells them, throw the ring into the fire, destroy it. And they don't. And he's like, oh, great. Well, for Elrond, he's like, this whole thing was predictable. I knew this was going to happen again. And I don't want to fight this war. I already fought a war to fight Morgoth, who he probably thought was worse. He's like, I'm done. I'm out.
Honestly, the elves don't owe man nothing.
Yeah.
They owe them nothing. It's like, we have been giving you advice for thousands of years, and at every turn, you have fucked it up. Why should there be any loyalty? Why should Elrond be anything other than, completely
because they still help them quite
jaded.
a bit.
Yeah.
They still help them quite a bit. They give them a lot of, intelligence, basically, and military aid, and they set them on their path. They give them a lot of information.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but again, I think that's why this part where he tells the story where it's like, I was there and I saw a human being fail. It just says so much about why they don't want to intervene. Like, I think he basically thinks that Aragorn's going to fail too. He's like, I don't know. Maybe he will.
He does on some level fear that Aragorn will fail. Yeah. I think he's really, really hoping he doesn't. I think he has more hope in Aragorn than maybe he did Isildur. Granted, we don't see the relationship between Elrond and Isildur. We don't see it.
We don't.
But we do know that there is
the TV show.
Not until we don't see them interact, though. I'm just gonna say, like, we don't see them interact. Isildur's still fucking off somewhere in the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a bitch ass. Anyway, so. But we definitely see more of an invested interest from Elrond into Aragorn.
Yes,
like,
and I
raised this kid. I know him.
Yes,
I care about. I love him on
my
some
daughter.
level. Yeah, he's in love with my daughter, which I'm not entirely cool with. Not because I think it's weird, but just because she needs to be with her people. And I think I think all of Elrond's motivations, all of his fears, especially in regards to Arwen, are totally natural for a father to have. It's just like he just wants her to have a future, and he doesn't see her having a future on Middle Earth. Like, you're gonna die alone. Like, do you want that?
Yeah.
Like,
you're gonna be heartbroken.
You are going to be the last elf enduring everything. You're gonna watch your kids die. You're gonna watch your husband die. That's rough. That's a lot. That's a responsibility. I wouldn't want my kid to have that.
Or at least think really hard about it. But be a little smarter
about it.
Love conquers all.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, so then we get to the scene, the Council of Elrond. This scene is awesome. So Frodo presents the ring to everybody. He puts it on the table, and Boromir, of course, is immediately like, "Oh, this is great! It's a gift. We can use it against our enemy." And Gandalf's like, "No, can't do that.
Boromir, shut up.
We cannot do that." So, and Aragorn is like, "No one else other than Sauron can control it. It answers to him alone." And then we get this whole thing about like, what would a ranger know of it?
Oh, shut up.
Legolas is like, he's no ranger. This is Aragorn, son of Arathorn.
Look at Legolas coming out like a cheerleader, man.
Yeah, they're very good friends. You can tell they're very good friends. He's constantly taking his side, sticking up for him, doing stuff like that, trying to, Again, Aragorn has very good relationships with elves. Very good. They all like him.
It's almost like he's known them for a long time or something. It's crazy.
He probably lived with elves for 100 years.
And you know what's cool too is that
maybe 50
he seems to have like this really cool relationship with all of the elven tribes. You know, whether it's Galadriel and her boo, whoever the fuck he is. You know, whether it's like Legolas, who's part of like the other guys.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think
he's and Rivendell elves. Like he's kind of cool with all of them because he's kind of just like, okay, well, you remember the Dunedain, like you're cool, like you're
cool. He speaks their language.
He speaks their language. He respects their culture, and he bangs their women. Sorry.
Exactly, but that is kind of important that everyone knows that he has this relationship with what's her name, and that they're probably eventually going to get together, and that he's a king too. He's basically the last king. They all know that.
King. Like there's some respect to be given. Also, bear in mind that in the books, Arwen is Galadriel's granddaughter, so that gives him even more cred.
Even
more
cred.
It's like, okay, well, the granddaughter of Galadriel is like up this dude's butt. Like there's got to be something there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he has these good relationships, and so he's always trying to be the reasonable, steady hand, but he doesn't want to take that big step towards assuming
command.
The kingship. He's still reticent.
Yes.
And then we get this great line where he's like, Legolas says he is the heir to the throne of Gondor, and he says, Boromir says, Gondor has no king and Gondor needs no king, because he is
that though.
Yeah, he kind of doesn't. I mean, he says that a bit because again, his dad is the steward of Gondor.
I think he's saying it because he's been programmed to. B, even though he despises his own father to an extent, he respects him because Denethor, they come from a pretty good lineage themselves. They got some cred. They're the stewards of Gondor. That's a big deal.
Is a big
deal. And he also has to show respect to his father amongst his father's peers because he's there in his father's place.
He's there in his father's place. And his father, as we see in the second film, his father, while being a fuck up, is he has some real sources. Like he has some information. He told Boromir that you're going to this meeting and it's about the ring.
Yeah, exactly.
And bring it to me. So they're not like, again, they're fuck ups, but there's some real infrastructure there, and they're like definitively the most sort of advanced human civilization out there.
Yeah,
Boromir's a real dude. Boromir's
he's a soldier. He's a warrior. He's a badass. Like he loves his brother, but he had to fix his brother's mess. Like Faramir's a great dude, and Faramir has a lot of heart, but like Boromir had to clean up his mess. I'm foster Aragorn after his father was killed. Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So Aragorn's a very cool character. And so they're like, okay, we can't do that. So we have to it has to be destroyed. And Gimli's like, okay, let's do it. He takes out an axe and he just like boom. And
he's like, there's a job that needs to be done. Okay.
Okay, yeah. What are we waiting for?
No, literally, like, okay, well, why are we sitting here then?
I love it. And he falls flat on his ass. He's like, what the what?
He's like, I may have misjudged that.
Yeah. So, Gimli, son of Gloim, this cannot be destroyed by any. What does he say? Like any instrument of man, something like it must.
Something like that. Yeah, it must be destroyed where it was.
In the fiery chasm from whence it came. Something.
Chasm's a great word.
Yeah, like that. It has to be destroyed in Mount Doom. One does not simply walk into Mordor.
And the meme
was born. You know what's great too is like Lord of the Rings memes. I feel like was a thing before like meme culture was a thing, because there were so many. Like there was like one of the first one, like the Taking the Hobbits to Isengard was like someone did a weird remix of that became a meme.
Dude,
So,
when I remember when Jack Black hosted like some MTV Movie Awards, they parodied it and memed it that way.
They did,
like,
yeah.
It was insane. It was absolutely insane. Like, God, remember when MTV used to do parodies?
I know, because
like, that's crazy. That was a whole thing.
Yeah, it was a whole thing, because like now that I think about that's like where a lot of these like memes and stuff, that and SNL and like Mad TV.
They memed freaking what was it?
Oh my god, what they did to the
Wars.
Matrix, the second Matrix, I think that actually like kind of killed the franchise, if I'm being honest.
It definitely didn't.
Do you remember that Will Ferrell thing where he was the he was that guy,
the architect?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Like Will Ferrell was the architect, and like he did this really funny thing, like the way that he like, because like the architect, like he was like he's in the chair and he's like not facing Neo, and then he turns around. The way that he did that, like he's like scooting in his chair really slowly. So killed it.
Fucking killed it.
No one could take it seriously after that.
That was a whole thing back in like the early thousands of MTV just not giving a fuck about them. Like it was just, it was great. They would kill a franchise, or they would help it. Oh, MTV did a whole thing with like with Gollum at one point. They had like Andy Serkis did a whole thing with that. It was just
I just saw something got in my feed the other day where I saw, it was from The Notebook. It was whoever was it Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling?
Yeah.
They did this, so they won for best kiss, and they did a kiss.
Like, yeah, she like stage. Jumps on him. She's like she on jumped. Him. Well, they were dating for a while, I think.
Oh, okay. So yeah, because like what they did was like, whoa, okay. Because yeah, like they get up on stage, they're away from each other. She takes off she's wearing this like very kind of sexy outfit. She jumps on him, and then it's like, whoa.
There was definitely a protocol to the MTV Movie Awards where if you won Best Kiss, you bet your ass you're kissing on that stage. Like it is a man, and if you don't, it becomes so awkward. There was one, I think, for Twilight. I think Robert Pattinson kissed another guy because Kristen Stewart like visibly uncomfortable. She did not want to do that. I think it was when they were still dating, but I think she told the story about how she was still struggling with her sexuality at the time, and he knew that. And he was just like, no, she was visibly uncomfortable, so we just made a joke out of it because she didn't. I'm not going to make her do that.
Robert Pattinson is such a wild dude.
It's like such
a wild dude.
That was a nice thing to do. That was just a good thing to do for your partner. You know, whatever their relationship was like. I just thought that was very nice. But anyway.
Yeah. That all that stuff, like that was like the 2000. That's all dead. Gone.
Oh yeah, you can't do
totally
that now.
Gone.
You can't do that now.
Well, MTV dying is just, I don't know, it's just a sad thing. Like there's all these memories I have, all these things that happen. It's like it's totally gone, and people just do not understand how big.
I remember seeing Evanescence music videos on there. Like that was a thing.
People just have no idea like how big of a deal it was.
No, they just get a T-shirt with MTV logo on it. No idea what it means.
No idea.
It sounds so old. Oh my god.
I know. It's like it's getting there. We're getting there. So they have to destroy the Mount Doom. They have to walk there. He talks about like how you can't, like when you go there, and this is something, you know, again, a lot of people talk a lot of shit about the Rings of Power, but I think one thing that's kind of cool about the Rings of Power is like they showed like how Mordor was created, and like he even talks about like there are toxic fumes.
Mm-hmm.
There are toxic fumes that exist there that's poisonous for you to breathe once you're there. And when we saw it being created, it casts this massive shadow over that area because these things that live there have to exist in darkness. It's just, it is the epitome of evil. It is a dark place. Yeah. So, and he's like, it's impossible. And so
I don't mean to pause again, but I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
I'm sorry.
I know this is a long one.
I am sorry. I will be right back.
We'll both take a break and then return.
Ellie, I gotta get up. Come on. Oh my god, my legs. Oh my god. Watch out. Stay put.
Okay.
She's mad at me now because I got up.
Why did you get up and make me move?
Needs must, babe. Needs must.
All right. Let's see. Okay. So they're deciding what to do. People can't agree. They can't destroy it. So they all start arguing. Everyone starts arguing and fighting. What I like about this scene is like it becomes kind of inaudible, but like you can still hear Gandalf like, I really like that.
It kind of sounds like a basset hound, like like a bloodhound.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. And then Frodo offers to take the ring. He's like, "I'll do it." And like what I love too is like because like Gandalf, he has this look of like, "Oh fuck," like because he knew it was gonna happen, but he was like,
"It's almost like this."
Something else could happen.
But dread, this guilt.
They all know it's going to destroy his life. They all know it's going to destroy his life, but he's the one to do it. He's the one to do it. He's the one.
Yeah, because honestly, so far he's like one of the few people who's just like, I don't want it, but I'm going to do it.
That's the other problem. Is like
do the damn thing.
The person who really wants it is Boromir. Can't have it. Can't have it. And no one else really wants to do it. And because it's funny because Legolas says like, didn't you hear what he said? We have to do something. And then Gimli's like, and you'd be the one to do it. Never trust an elf.
Never trust an elf. Yeah. Never trust an elf. Yeah. They're taking our jobs.
They're taking our jobs. Yeah.
I'd rather die than see the ring in the hands of an elf.
Hands of an elf. Yeah,
that's when things really kick off. When Gimli was that racist piece of shit thing.
I know. Yeah, there's another extended
his racism.
He does. Yeah. There's another extended scene where he says something in Elvish to the elves.
It was
very
hurtful. Yeah.
Whoa, like it was really bad.
You don't need to speak the language to know what he said.
Yeah.
He's probably like, "Fuck your mother."
Exactly.
And the horse you rode in on.
Exactly, yeah. So they accept Frodo's offer, and all of them, Gandalf's like, "I'll go with you," and Aragorn's like, "I'll go with you, and I'll bring my sword, and I'll bring my bow," Legolas says,
"and my axe."
My axe. It's like, ugh.
You mean the one you just broke?
And that was a really nice axe. Like they make really great stuff.
Oh, the props in this movie are great, and the dwarves make really good shit. And
so it is indestructible. It is indestructible. So yeah, and then like Sam and Merry and Pippin all come running into. They were eavesdropping again and doing all this stuff, and Elrond, there's the tomfoolery.
It also makes this really great point of that they're having this super secret meeting outside, by the way, Elrond. So don't come at me with oh, it's a secret meeting.
I know, yeah.
But nobody noticed them. Nobody noticed them. That's there you go.
Yeah.
They're the guys for the job, man.
Yeah, and so the 9 companions, you shall be called the Fellowship of the Ring. And that's it. This is the Fellowship. And then Pippin's like, great, where are we going?
Where are we going? Oh, you're fucking dope.
He's so
dope.
So
nice, but you're such a dope.
Yeah. So they all say their goodbyes. And Bilbo gives Frodo 2 things. He gives him Sting, the sword, which he used in The Hobbit. And he also gives him the mithril armor. And then he sees the ring. He's like, oh, can I touch it? And he's like, no.
Can you touch it? No.
So and then he's like, ah! So when I saw this the first time with my friend, who was like, he'd read the books and he was like really into it. He jumped out of his fucking seat.
It scared me. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that jump. That's another horror jump scare right there.
It's very scary. It is very scary, and it's such a great illustration too of what the ring will do to you. What the ring's going to do to Frodo. He hasn't
even had it for months, maybe? In context of the books, maybe months he hasn't had it.
Yeah, maybe
and
months.
Still withdrawing from it. It's
yeah.
Sorry, I'm just rubbing my dog's belly.
But... It's really bad. So yeah, and this is another scene that's in the extended that I think is really nice. So they're leading themselves out. So Frodo is in front and Gandalf's behind him, and he's like, I don't know which way to go. They come to a fork in the road. It's like, just go left. And then he goes left, and they're going together. He whispers it to him. It's really nice. It's just like, it just shows like how he feels about this whole adventure. Like he's doing it, but he doesn't know. He's
I don't know where I'm
getting
going.
there. But yeah.
I don't know why I'm here. Last week I was smoking weed on my uncle's porch, and
Yeah.
now I'm doing this, and I don't.
Yeah, I was in a bar, and like, I was trying to get Sam to date this girl.
I was trying to get Sam laid, and now I'm here, and now nobody's getting laid, except for maybe Aragorn, apparently.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, for sure. And then we get this, like, this is one of the great moments of this movie when they're like walking out and the whole fellowship is together and they're on these mountains and the score starts swelling.
I love that score swell.
Yeah, we can feel, and it's like those drum, like the drums are beating, and then they're coming over this ridge in this pass, and then it's like we get the Lord of the Rings theme. Yeah, it's fucking phenomenal. So they're up in this mountain pass, and they're sort of eating breakfast or something. Gimli's like, "Why are we going the long way around? We should go through the mines of Moria. My Uncle Balin will give us a massive feast." And he's like, "I don't want to do that, dude. Like, I appreciate you guys. I like you guys, but there's some things you did.
Rumors of some stuff that went down in Moria.
Yeah.
And it's just
Some things went down there.
We can't confirm any of it's true yet, but there have been some scuttlebutts, whatever."
And so then they see these things, they're coming, it's like, oh, it's just a cloud. It's like, no, it's not a cloud. It's moving really fast against the wind. And so they hide, and it's like these, what were they, birds or bats or something?
I thought they were birds. They kind of sound like birds. They could be bats, though. Bats are always kind of associated with evil, so.
Yeah, but there's some.
Go ahead.
There's some kind of familiar of Saruman that he's using to get information, basically.
For sure. I also love in this scene, like prior to like the evil familiars or whatever, that Boromir's taking the initiative to teach the hobbits like at least some basic.
Yeah, they're doing some little combat training,
fighting, and there's like some cuteness to it. But you also see that like, okay, Boromir's not entirely like shit. He obviously does care. No. He cares enough to teach them how to defend themselves, and I feel like that goes back to like his leadership kind of a thing, like his leadership like character trait. He's like, if I'm going to be with these guys, they gotta at least know something. Like, yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not a terrible dude. And really, like, as we'll come to the end, like, you realize the ring just kind of corrupted him. I mean, it does not help that his father put these terrible ideas in his head. Basically, that doesn't help at all. But yeah, he's not a bad dude. No, and he's very brave, and he's just as heroic. That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be there.
So they continue to pass over this mountain. So they're up in this mountain, and it's really snowy. And Frodo drops the ring, and then Boromir picks it up, and we get this kind of tense moment where it's like, "Give me back the ring, bro." And he's like, just looking at it, Yeah, he's got this he's got that, he's transfixed. And Aragorn was like ready to kill him. Like he had his hand on the sword.
He had his hand on the hilt of the sword,
and he was like. Yeah, he was ready to kill him.
Why don't you give the ring back? And he's just like,
and he does do it. He does give it back.
Yeah, but it was tense. It was very tense.
Yeah, because like he would have to kill him.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? He would have. Yeah. I don't think Aragorn would have hesitated. Yeah, he would have killed him. It would have sucked, but they would have fought it out. But he would have had to do it. Yeah.
So they get towards the top of this mountain, and one of the cool things is like, so they're all like, I mean, they are knee deep in the snow, way deep in the snow. And Legolas is stepping on top of the snow.
Yeah, he's very light.
Because he's an elf. Yeah.
He's light as a feather.
Yeah, he's light as a feather. And he's like, there's a foul voice on the wind. And then we kind of like go through the mist, and we see Saruman at the pinnacle is like basically casting a spell, creating this massive storm cloud over the mountain. And they're like, dude, we're not going to make it. And the fucking lightning bolt hits the top of the mountain, a bunch of snow falls. He's like, we have to go back. We cannot go this way.
No, and again, it's Boromir who's the one who's like, these guys are going to die. Like, these hobbits are not going to make it. The hobbits won't make it. We'll make it a little bit further. We're probably still going to die. But these hobbits are not going to make it.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like holding Merry and Pippin, like,
they're freezing.
Like, he's holding them. And it's, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
It's nice.
Let
But
the
yeah,
ring
so
bearer
let the
choose.
ring bearer decide, and because like basically it's like we should either. So Boromir says we should take the Gap of Rohan and then go towards my city. And again, like Aragorn's like, no, we can't do that. And Gimli's like, we should take the mountain pass and go through what's the place, Khazad-dûm or
Khazad-dûm. And
yeah,
it's
we should go through that.
Khazad-dûm and Moria are like the same place.
Moria, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, so the thing about it is you can tell that like again, Boromir has this other kind of agenda. He wants to get the ring to them so they can take it and basically control it.
It will also expose them though. Like Aragorn's right. Like we're gonna be out in the open. Are you crazy?
And like you said, like taking that path, it's right near Isengard, and Isengard's been taken over by the enemy, so it's super dangerous because basically they're between two places that want to take the ring. Both the good side and the bad side both want to take the ring from them, so it's just like a bad choice. But they're all bad choices, unfortunately, for them.
There's no good choice in this.
Yeah, and Frodo chooses Moria, and Gandalf's like, okay, we're going to Moria. So they're walking there, and again in another extended scene, Gandalf's like, oh, can you help an old man? I need your help. And he's like, hey, dude, you know what you need to do, right? You know that you need to leave us, and you know that Boromir is going to try and take the ring. And I know at some point you'll have to do that. I'm going to try and get you as far as I can, but that's the deal. And then as they reach the wall, and it's really cool. It's again like this massive place. There's just so much like world building that's really incredibly well done in this film and in this series, because like these are all such real, vivid, lived in places.
Yes, lived in is a very good way of putting it. Very lived in, looks real, because they're in real places. They're in New Zealand. They're on sets, but like they're filming there. Like they're doing the damn thing. And it adds that extra layer of realism that really helps immerse you into the story.
Yeah. So they get to the wall, they find the passageway, and this is, I believe it's like in the book. Tolkien created a drawing of what this doorway looks like, and they made it exactly like that, and it's really cool. Yeah. And it says speak friend and enter, and he's like trying to say stuff in Elvish and it's not working, and they get stuck.
I love when Gandalf finally just throws his hat and his staff, and I was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm mad.
I found it. Oh damn it. So they're just waiting and waiting and waiting, right? And he's like, I don't know what to do now. Meanwhile, of course, our two fuck up idiots are throwing rocks into the water.
I mean,
what could possibly go wrong? They're like waiting. They're like, and I think it's Boromir's like, dude, don't disturb the ocean. Don't do it. You don't know what could be there.
A kraken, maybe.
And then Frodo's like, oh, speak friend and enter. Like, what's the Elvish word for friend? And he's like, Belloch. And it's like, it opens. Like, oh, we figured it out. Yay.
Solving riddles, it runs in the family.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. And so, I found it in my book, my version of The Lord of the Rings. So this is the picture that he created.
Yeah, that's like a perfect likeness. That's like perfect.
Yeah, no, and they basically just recreated it. And it's, again, the production design is like fucking phenomenal.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. So they get in and Gimli is just like so excited. It's like, oh, you have no idea how great it is. It's like what do you say? Like something about beer. There's like beer, fire, and
there's beer, wine, pork, food, women.
And then they get in there and everyone is dead.
It's really sad.
Everyone is dead. It took it like when I don't think it was maybe until, man, I mean, very recently where I kind of like understood like Gimli goes through a lot in this part of the film.
He really does. Like, this is rough.
He really does. It's really bad. And it's actually like really sad. Yeah. Because we basically never see dwarves in this world.
Yeah,
other than him. They're either dead or they're hiding. They're basically hiding. Hiding.
They're hiding. They're trying to. It's like a self-preservation thing. They're just kind of keeping underground, and all we really see is Gimli, and he's seeing all of his. This is his family,
Yeah. Yes.
These are his kin. Like, it's supposed to be a whole city full of people, and they're all just gone.
They're all gone. And
it's a tomb. I think that's how Boromir describes it. Like,
Boromir
this is
said,
a tomb.
"This isn't a mine. This is a tomb."
Yeah, this is awful. Like,
yeah, and he's really like the performance John Rhys Davies gives is like actually pretty good. It took me a while to like understand because like he's really like wailing.
Yeah.
And sad.
Pain. He's in pain.
Yeah. This is bad. I mean, there's a ton of dead dwarves there. And so anyway, but then the Watcher in the water comes. This freaking Kraken comes out of the water and grabs Frodo.
Kraken.
A literal Kraken. And this is interesting because like in the book, he doesn't really describe it fully. Like he just says, oh, there were tentacles and the tentacles grabbed him and they cut the tentacles and got him free. But we don't know that it's a Kraken. But
creatively, you can kind of merge whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like, what could the thing be that has these kind of tentacles? It must be some kind of an octopus. And I mean, this thing, this was a fucking octopus. At some point, it grabs Frodo and is like about to eat him. Like you see the maw of its mouth open in the water.
Yeah, and it still looks really good. Even 20 years later, this thing looks
amazing. I mean that this was another thing that really kind of like blew me away. Was this like I was like, bro, that is a Kraken. That is
and just the idea of being swallowed by something, just like, it's just so grotesque, and you're alive, and you're probably gonna suffocate or drown in the mucus. It's just,
it's terrible. And I mean, again, this is a scary world that they live in. Okay, like
you're literally being hunted by things that are going to eat you.
Yeah. And then at some point it would have spit up the ring, and then some little goblin would have taken it, and that would have been the end of the world.
There you go.
Oh, they got killed by the Watcher in the water or whatever the fuck they call this thing.
But that's what an adventure story is. Keep throwing obstacles up in front of your characters. You can't make it. You cannot make it easy for them. That's one of the pieces of writing advice I took. Is just like, if you make it easy for your characters, what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
Like, you gotta. So I guess there's gonna be a Kraken.
There's gonna be a Kraken in the water, and it's and like so. Legolas has to like basically one shot this thing. He doesn't kill it, but he hits it in the head with his arrow while they're cutting the tentacles. Boromir and Aragorn, and so I think Boromir catches him, right? He falls.
Boromir catches him.
They run into the mine, and the Kraken destroys the doorway, craters it, and they're stuck.
And would you want to go back out that way anyway? Like,
no, they would have had to fight. I mean, they probably could have killed it. Probably. I think Legolas probably could have hit it in the eye. Honestly, probably what would have happened was Legolas would have hit him in the eyes, and it would have run away.
Probably.
I think it would have retreated. I don't know if they really could have killed it.
Yeah, because I don't care how big you are, getting poked in the eye hurts.
Yeah. As we'll actually kind of see with a cave troll. Although the cave troll took it in the throat. So, and now they're like, what is Gandalf says? We have the long trip ahead of us through the mine of Moria, and there are worse things that dwell in the deep, dark places of the world.
Yeah, and I think it's going to have to take them like 3 days to get to one end to like the other, and they have to be very quiet. Don't alert your presence. Like, we can do this if we all just, not make any noise. Pippin.
Yeah, I forget if they're, because again, like, it kind of helps like the Hobbit stuff. Because in the Hobbit, like, there's a real kind of beef between like goblins and dwarves. I don't know if I think they're orcs that we end up running into in here, or it might be goblins, but whatever they are.
I thought it was like a mix, honestly.
Yeah, it seems like it's a mix. Like the bad guys are like goblins, orcs, and Urgai, basically.
Yeah.
But like you kind of get the idea, like there are these things out there waiting for us, and like they basically killed everybody, and now they're just like chilling in this what was once a great city, as we actually saw in Rings of Power.
We actually do see how amazing Khazad-dûm was in Rings of Power, which I really appreciated and I really liked. Yeah. And that should just give you more perspective on the scale of which
and
this is.
Again, I think this was something else we talked about off air, but like basically the world of Middle Earth at this time is very like hollowed out. It's a very like post-war kind of world where all these things, again, Moria was once a great city, heavily populated. It is now basically completely abandoned because of wars and other destructions, and they probably, everyone who lived there was either killed or they had to retreat and leave somewhere else.
Think like Berlin post World War II. Think Dresden, what happened there. like
Exactly.
anywhere in Japan.
Yeah, and that's that's like the whole planet is like that, and they're just walking through this the post-war world,
trying to prevent another one that's about to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so there's in another scene that's only in the extended cut, Gandalf talks about like, oh, the real wealth here was the mithril, and they look down and they can see the silver mithril mines,
the veins and everything. It's really cool.
He talks about how Thorin gave Bilbo 3 mithril rings that were worth more than the whole Shire at the end of his adventures in The Hobbit. So, and then they come to somewhere where there's like 3 different doors, and he's like, I have no memory of this place.
I have no memory. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, so they're just sitting and waiting, and they're smoking and doing whatever. Frodo spots Gollum, and he's like, "Oh my God, he's here!" He's like, "Oh yeah, he's been with us the whole time, man. He's persistent. He's always following us." So he was once called Smeagol, and Frodo's like, oh, I wish Bilbo killed him. He's like, well, many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? And if not, then don't be so eager to deal out death and judgment. And he says, he will serve a purpose before the end of the story, which I thought was really a good sort of thematic point, which is like, even though the best and the worst people all have their role to play.
Yes.
And it's not for us to be like, oh, you're a bad person, so I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
The world exists in good and evil and a shade of gray. And at some point, we're going to see Gollum has a really important point to play in this film and in the story. And if he just were killed at any one of these other points, maybe this whole thing goes worse. And he's not a good dude. He's not a good dude at all. But he has an important role to play. No,
he's a liar. He's a manipulator. He's a killer. He's a thief. Gollum's not a good dude. But there's also, I think more for Frodo, he's seeing what he could become in Gollum, and he wants to save him. He wants to save Gollum so badly.
Yeah, and I think at this point, he sees him and he thinks, "Oh, I'll never be like that. So he should be killed. He's horrible."
Yeah, he's useless. He has no purpose. Yeah,
exactly. And so, but then later he starts to have that same kind of pity, because it's like, oh, he's feeling the same thing I feel, which is this burden of the ring.
It's a different kind of pity than what Bilbo feels towards Gollum. He sees
Gollum
as he sees Gollum. He's like, Bilbo sees Gollum before he's about to kill him. And he's like, oh, what a pitiful creature.
Yeah.
What a poor, pitiful animal, just living in these caves, eating goblins, goblins and eating fish. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna spare his life because I also took something of his that he's clearly very attached to, because he's willing to kill me for it. So, but then Frodo's pity for him is different.
Yeah. And so then Frodo says, I wish this never happened. I wish the ring never came to me, and all this. And then Gandalf says, so do all people who live through such times, but it's not for them to decide. All we can do is decide what to do with the time that is given to us. Yeah. Some great stuff.
That's a very beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And then he figures out, oh, it's this way because it smells bad. when in doubt, follow your nose.
Yeah.
So then they come to the grand hall of Dwarendalf, and it's this it's massive. Like the scale is just absolutely incredible. And again, another great score from Howard Shore in that moment. I think Gandalf said like, oh, we need more light here so we can see what all of this is. So then Gimli sees some more dead bodies, and that there's something going on. Like there's like a doorway somewhere. So then he runs over there, and they're like, Gimli, what are you doing? And they run into this room, and there they find the tomb of Balin. And Gandalf reads the inscription like, here lies Balin, Lord of Moria. So was that his uncle?
I think it was his uncle, yeah.
His uncle?
Because we see him in
Something
The
like
Hobbit.
that.
He's the one with the really, really
Yeah.
long beard. He's the one who's always giving kind of counsel to Thorin, which Thorin
Yeah.
then ignores constantly.
You're right. Yeah, Thorin's oof. Yeah, this is again another sad thing because like, I mean, this is getting really close to like his family dead.
And he had no idea. Like, I think there's more of an explanation as to why Gimli wasn't aware of what was going on in Moria in the books. I feel like there's probably an explanation. It does feel kind of weird that these bodies have clearly been here for a very long time, and nobody really seemed to have any idea. So that always kind of confused me a little bit. But like, yeah, he had no idea that his uncle was just like dying there, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah, the tomb, and it's a really cool shot because like there's a tomb there, and then they created this little sill of a window so that like this light could pour into it. And then, you know, Gandalf starts reading this book. Like this is basically some dude was writing what was happening.
Like a scribe or something.
Yeah, and he's like, you know, they are coming. We cannot get out. Like they have taken the bridge. They've taken this. They've taken that. We cannot get out. They are coming. And then Pippin, this fucking idiot, there's a dead body and he pushes it down a well.
I don't think he meant to push it. No, he was just like touching something on it because he was
the head falls.
It was morbid, and you know, he has curiosity. He's only, I almost said human. He has humanity, whatever. And it falls down a well, and I almost feel like initially this moment can be played for laughs because it seems really like and it keeps going, and he's making the little faces of but with the context of what Gandalf just read, it's not funny.
It's really scary.
It's not funny, especially since he made such a point of to be quiet. Don't draw attention to us.
Yeah. Oh. And he's really fucking mad.
He's really mad.
What did he say? He says, next time, throw yourself down there so you'll be rid of your stupidity. And I feel like after that moment, Pippin's just trying to make up for it. Yeah, because another thing he reads is like we hear drumming in the deep, something like that. In the deep. And that's what they hear. They hear a drum beat. And they're like, oh shit, they're coming. Yeah. They're coming for us. So then they close the doors. Boromir closes the doors, but some arrows get shot at his head.
Yeah.
He's like, they have a cave troll. And so a battle ensues. And also like what's his name pulls out Sting. Frodo pulls out Sting and it's glowing. It's blue. So the battle is on. Yeah, and so then they come to kill him. And so they're trying to bust down this door, a bunch of goblins and orcs, and you know, Gimli says so this is another thing too. So like Gimli says this line. It took me probably like maybe a decade to know exactly what he said. I couldn't really understand it, but he says, there is one dwarf yet in Moria who still draws breath. He's basically saying, I'm going to fucking kill you because you killed my family and my people. I'm going to fucking kill you guys, and I cannot wait to kill you.
Yeah, I'm ready. Today's a good day to die. Man.
Yeah. And this is a really good battle. This is probably one of my favorite action or like adventure scenes in the whole Lord of the Rings because it feels very kind of like, you know, they're a small party and they're taking on this like much larger force.
The stakes are very high. They're in close quarters. It's a very small space. It's very claustrophobic, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on at one time.
And it's pretty brutal. I mean, the fight basically starts, they shoot some dudes in the head with an arrow, and then Aragorn chops a dude's head off, and you see the blood splurt out.
Yeah.
It is violent.
I feel like it's one of those movie tropes where it's like, if the blood isn't red, be as violent as you want. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things, like, it can be rated PG, PG-13. You can show violence, but if the blood is black or any other color, be as violent as you want.
Go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the cheat that
he cuts off a few heads.
he murders some dudes, and it's I think even in the extended the fight's a little bit longer. Like there's something that happens with Boromir, like he accidentally gets like he picks up some. I think he like there's the cave troll. They're taking it in with some chains. He accidentally grabs the chain, and then the troll throws him. Chucks him.
And he realizes his mistake after he picks it up too. He's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, I think Aragorn saves him from that because of that situation.
He's gonna get smushed.
He's gonna get smushed, and then Aragorn saves him, and they kind of had this like nod, like, "Hey,
thanks, man." Wow.
Well, it's also like, hey, you know, no beef, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna protect you. So let's win this fight together. Um, the hobbits are fighting too. Sam pulls out a skillet,
Cast
and
iron
he's
skillet.
cast
Yeah,
iron skillet. He's banging dudes
he's
in the head with
cracking
it.
skulls.
Yeah, I'm good at the hang of this, like you said before. But they get sort of like the three of them, Pippin, Merry, and Frodo get kind of trapped by this cave troll, and the troll kind of like corners them. It grabs Frodo, it gets him by the foot, and it's gonna take him or kill him or whatever. Aragorn shows up with a massive like spear, spears it in the heart, but doesn't kill it, and he gets smacked away. He gets knocked out. The troll then takes the spear and stabs Frodo like basically in the heart, and everyone's like, no.
Slow motion.
And so then they start fighting. I think is it Pippin gets on the troll's back? And
I think Merry and Pippin jump on it and start shanking it.
They're just stabbing it in the back, and then it like sort of gets stabbed, and then it kind of like exposes his throat, and then Aragorn shoots it in the throat. And that kills him. And like it has this whole thing where it falls very dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic.
It falls very dramatically, and they're like, "Oh no, Frodo's dead." And they turn him over, and he's like, "Okay, I'm fine. I'm all right." It's like, "Whoa, how did you live to that? That would have killed a wild boar or something." He said, "That's what Aragorn says." And they see he's wearing the mithril armor. And yeah, mithril. It's like, oh, I think that even like what's his name? Gandalf says, "Oh, there's more to this hobbit than meets the eye." I think he's
he's like, "Okay, you got some little secrets there, a little bit, some secrets."
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, we just got done. No, there's even that moment though when Gandalf is talking about the mithril and Thorin and Bilbo. Like Frodo kind of touches his shirt and he's like, "What? Yeah. What am I wearing right now?" Yep.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, and again, it's like, I mean, we'll get to it when we talk about the Hobbit films. I do think that, there are some things that are good, there's some things that are bad, but like when you see all the ways that these things actually tie in together, it just like, you don't really need to know that for this film, but it's a nice thing to like sort of realize like how big this story is. The story is just massive.
Yeah.
And there's so many different things that keep sort of leading from one moment to the next in the storytelling. And so they have to run to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, and they get completely surrounded by these orcs. Completely surrounded. I mean, there are thousands of them, thousands. And they're trapped, and then we hear the sound of something, this like very menacing growl, and all the goblins run away. All the orcs, they just run away. They crawl back up into where they came from, and they scurry away. And like, Boromir's like, "What is this ill devilry?" Because he thinks that Gandalf is creating this sound and this. It's like, no, that's not me. That's the Balrog. It's coming. We have to run. It's like, run!
Oh boy.
And so they start running. They're trying to get out of there, and like this really cool shot too of like, you can see this as the Balrog is approaching. The light that it emanates is being cast through these abandoned halls, and it's like it's really foreboding.
Yeah.
So they're running, and we get to this whole kind of sequence. There was another thing that's like Aragorn and Gandalf had this weird exchange that kind of confused me for a long time. Basically, like Gandalf is telling him, like, dude, you there's no turning back at this point. Like you have to lead them. And Aragorn kind of just doesn't take him seriously, and he basically was gonna go and like try to fight the Balrog and like I guess die so that they can get away. He's like, no, dude, you don't understand. You can't fight this thing. Only I could possibly maybe fight this thing. And you're gonna have to lead them. Go. And we get into this weird situation where like, they're on this little rock thing, and then they have to like kind of position themselves so that the little rock they're on falls forward so that Frodo and Aragorn can like get with the rest of them. And so we get more great music, swelling music. They're running and running and running. There's fire behind them, and then the fucking Balrog jumps out of this cavern and like appears itself, and that is a epic moment.
I love the Balrog personally.
The Balrog is epic as fuck. And not only that, but I mean, this is a 20-year-old shot, and it looks really fucking.
It looks amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Like that Balrog is scary.
I mean, thinking of some of my favorite shots, you know, with the ring raid and when they're under the dead tree, and then this is just
And the sound design is so good. Like when it's growling or whatever it's doing, the way the sound that they make, because it sounds like fire coming out of a furnace or something.
It does, or like a volcano erupting, or a volcano like rumbling a little bit. Yeah. No, it's got great stage presence for sure.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is like this Balrog, the way he describes the Balrog and the way that the Balrog has been depicted, it's not really consistent because it's not. There's some things that are kind of, you know,
I've heard that. Yeah.
And so they really kind of created this, you know, the same with the Eye of Sauron. This image of the Balrog, which has become so iconic, is something that they really kind of crafted and honed for this film.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, this is basically, this has become super, again, iconic for what is a Balrog. Like it's this demonic giant thing with these horns that spits fire. So then they run across the bridge, and Gandalf stops in the middle of the bridge, and he's like, "You cannot pass. You cannot pass."
The wielder of the secret fire.
I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark flame will not avail you, flame of Unun. It's like, what was he saying, right?
I don't know what he's saying, but I love all of it.
But like, did it matter at all? Like you could feel the moment.
I think it matters. He's throwing his resume out there, man. He's like, okay, you want to come at me, bro? Like, let's do this. I'm ready. Let's throw pause.
Go back to the shadow.
I guess one of the best things to do when I still worked at Panera is I'd be on the line and I'd be like sweeping or something, and someone would try to cut through, and I'd be like, "You shall not pass." And I worked with a bunch of nerds at one point, so it was fun.
I liked it. Yeah,
I know. I used to use my broomstick like I was freaking Gandalf.
No, what I love about this scene too is like, for a long time, still, I mean, again, you have to do a deep dive to understand what he was actually saying. All the stuff, the flame of Arnor and you know, the flame of Udun, but like for your average audience member, they have no idea. But what they can feel is that he is fighting this thing, and he's basically saying, "I will kill you, I will destroy you, I will fight you to the death. You need to leave." And you can feel that in his performance too. Like the performance is unbelievable.
It's
like,
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable what he puts into this moment.
Can you imagine being Ian McKellen seeing that done after it's rendered and premiered, and he's just like, "That's what oh man, like."
Because for him it was a green screen. He's talking to a little thing. Nothing's there. Nothing's there.
It's great. I love it.
It's amazing. It's so amazing. And there's a couple of shots like again his reaction shot to seeing the Balrog, and it's like on his face, and you can see the heat hitting his face. Man, it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
So the Balrog doesn't heed his warning. It goes after him. It pulls out this whip. It's got like a lava whip.
Oh yeah.
Whip tries to whip him. He like creates this little like magic shockwave. It like flares up its nose like a bull basically, and then it steps at him, and the bridge collapses and it falls. It's falling and falling, and then it cracks the whip and it grabs his foot, and he's like about to fall, and then everyone's like, "Oh no, shit!" Frodo tries to run after him. Boromir stops him, and he's like, "Fly, you fools!"
Fly.
And he just falls, and they're like, "What?" They're just blown away, and they all just have to like get out of.
Believe him, and you can't really go for him. You can go back for him.
Yeah, and I mean, this scene is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. This is just another one that like I remember the first time I saw it, it was like really kind of this whole sequence just like feels like a pure fantasy adventure film. Like this is what you want out of that type of a story.
No,
the stakes are high. There's these magical creatures. There's people with magic. There's there are these goblins and orcs and dwarves, and they're all fighting. And there's they're basically fighting to save the world, and it's very hard for them to survive this. And for all intents and purposes, Gandalf the Grey is dead at that point.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them. It's really hard for them to take his death. You know, even Boromir says, like, you know, Aragorn's like, we got to go. We have to go now because by nightfall, this place will be swarming with orcs. And Boromir's like, just give them a moment for pity's sake.
Yeah, they need a minute. But Aragorn knows, like, we can't. Like, we got to keep moving.
We got to move. And even at this point, we see, like, a really melancholy Frodo, like, walking away.
Yeah.
And Aragorn's
so
like,
sad.
you know, I guess he wasn't ready to leave at that point. So then they all go into the woods. They get into the woods, and they're like, you know, they're elves that live here. And I think there's some comedic moment where, like, it's actually some more kind of, like, you know, speciesism where he's like, oh, I heard, you know, Gimli's like, oh, I hear there's a woman here who's a witch. She'll bewitch you, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. And
she's hot, so she must be a witch.
Exactly. And she's a woman with power. She must be evil.
No such thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like, oh, stay behind me. Like, I'll protect you. I can hear them a mile away. like an arrow in his
eyes
face.
Of an eagle and the eaters of a fox.
Yeah. And there's like an arrow in his face. And then the dude's like, oh, he was so loud we could have shot him in the dark.
I was like, yeah, he's not very subtle. We can literally smell him a mile away. Have you guys in a bath?
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, there's a scene, again, it's in the extended, so sort of in the theatrical, they kind of like, they meet with them, they kind of talk a little bit, and then they get taken to this city. In the extended version, there's basically, they come there and they're like, you're bringing great evil, we are not going to let you in, and so you guys need to leave. And then they're basically sitting on the outskirts of where they live in their forest, which is their territory, and Aragorn is pleading. like he is pleading. You can see he's begging this dude, please let us in. Please, we need help. So our friend just died. They've been through a lot. We have 4 hobbits with us.
Gandalf is dead, dude. He is dead Dunskies. Now let me the fuck into your house.
Yeah, like we really need help. And, you know, like, I just love that scene where he's pleading. Like, you can tell he is begging this dude for help. He's begging.
It's like, I'm calling in all of my favors, all of my IOUs. Let me in.
And they do, and they're like, okay, come follow us. And I forget, what was their city called? I
still can't remember.
Yeah,
like, it's bugging the crap out of me that I can't remember what it's called.
Let me see if Lord of the Rings. I forget it too. Lothlorien. Yeah, that's their city. And they're right in the woods. You know, like they basically put themselves, like they're the in a lot of other fantasy, there's just this trope and idea of the wood elves who live in the actual forest and have built their homes into trees. That's basically exactly what they are in this, which is really cool. So, and then they meet Galadriel, and this is kind of interesting too, because like you talked about, like, you know, a part of Gimli's thing is that he has to sort of learn to like not hate elves.
Mm-hmm.
He is totally enraptured by her.
Rightfully so.
He's totally enraptured by her beauty. Like, he looks at her, he's like, oh my god, it's the most beautiful thing
she's
I've ever
hot
seen.
shit. I mean, she's cool. She's very powerful, and you know, I think Galadriel respects dwarves. I think she respects most creatures that are good-hearted and stuff like that. But I think she also just knows how powerful she is too. She's like, no, you're gonna like Boromir shrinks like a violet in front of her. Like,
absolutely.
Shrink. And part of it could be because he's in mourning, you know, just watched Gandalf die. There feels like there's no hope. He's in a place that might not be entirely welcoming. And, you know, he shrinks like a freaking violet.
He does,
in front of her.
And really, each one of them is having a different kind of reaction because she's almost like sort of projecting these thoughts into their head or feelings, or it's sort of like almost like elucidating what their deepest, darkest desires are. And she's like, oh, I know who you are inside.
I see right through you.
With Boromir, it's like, oh, I know that you want the ring. You want the power. I know that.
Because also she's giving like her little speech and she's talking to everyone. And when she looks at Frodo, she's having a completely different conversation with him in her head. So just think of what she was saying to everybody else.
Yes.
Like she is she is having 2 separate conversations at once.
Yeah. I think it's even more than 2. I think that it's at least 3 or 4.
It's brilliant. It's amazing. It's really, really good. Like, you know exactly who she and what she is and how powerful she is just within the first like few seconds. Like, oh, she's just a pretty elf. I'm like, no, she's a lot more than that. She's
a lot
elf.
more. Yeah.
She's the elf.
And then so like they ask like, oh, what happened to Gandalf? And Legolas says Gandalf was taken by both shadow and flame, and then he was killed by the Balrog. And yeah, and so basically say, okay, fine, you know, you guys can stay the night, and we'll kind of get you guys ready so that you can continue on your journey
too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they again, like, you know, the elves helped them a lot. Like they did not have to take them in to their territory.
No,
this is very dangerous for them, and they don't just like give them food. They give them everything they need to like succeed in this journey.
Galadriel literally gives them all gifts, like Father fucking Christmas and Chronicles of Narnia. You know,
exactly.
Like, you can have all gifts. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah, she's a So and what is it? Celebrimbor is her husband, I believe.
I think Celeborn.
Celeborn, yeah,
is her husband. Celebrimbor, I think, is the guy who helps Sauron make the rings and shit. Yeah.
Celeborn is her elf husband.
Her boo.
Yeah, and they're together, and you know they're talking and sort of greeting them. And the elves are singing a lament for Gandalf, and it's like, you know, Legolas is like, oh, it's such a somber song, I can't even tell you what they're saying. And so then Galadriel and Frodo have this little meeting where she's like, you know, I'll show you something if you want to see it. In this little bowl. It's like, what she says, things that are, things that were, and things that have not yet come to pass, I think is what she says. So then he looks in and he sees basically what would happen if they lost. And this is like sort of their depiction of the Scouring of the Shire. Sam is in chains, like in chains like a slave. They're burning, like the Shire is burning, and like you see the goblins and orcs there destroying and killing and pillaging.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really bad. And he's like, what the hell was that? And he's like, that's what will happen if you fail. And then he offers the ring to her, which is, you know, again, I feel like watching it, I'd never understood how, but that's a big fucking deal.
This is biblical. This is literally biblical.
Yeah, this is like offering. I think the equivalent would be like if you gave an archangel like you know, Gabriel or Raphael or whatever, I'll give you the power to be God. Do you want to take it? And she has this whole thing where I would become a queen.
Dark Lord, you would have a queen.
More powerful and destructive than them all.
Stronger than the foundations of the earth.
Yeah.
All will love me and despair. It's like,
it's like, oh shit. And then it's like, oh, okay.
Scary.
I passed the test.
No, I love that. She's relieved.
Yeah.
She's genuinely relieved. She has looked evil literally in the eye and been like, nope, it's not for me.
And what's great too, she says, you offer this to me like freely?
Like this is
most people would try to get something in exchange for this. Like this is the most powerful artifact on the planet. And they'd want, you know, infinite life or infinite wealth or be sent to heaven. You're just gonna give this to people?
Yeah.
And he was serious.
Yeah, he was 100% serious.
He would have given it to her, but she couldn't take it. And that's what's so crazy about this. No one else can take. She's the most powerful being on the planet, basically. And she's like, hell no, I can't take it.
And she's like, this is yours, man. Like, it sucks and it's a shitty burden, but like, you are literally the only person who can do that.
Yeah, you're the only person who can do it. To bear a ring of power is to be alone, and she shows her his ring. Nenya, which were forged. We actually saw them be forged in Rings of Power.
We did see it be forged.
Yeah. Again, this is something where I feel like this was cut from the actual when she
I think it was as well. I think this was in the extended version.
Yeah.
She's kind of showing him like I don't know exactly what you're going through, dude. But to be a ring bearer is to be alone.
And she's a ring bearer. I still don't. I guess I'll have to see the next couple seasons, but I still don't like understand like what the Elven Rings of Power do. I guess I'll learn that at some point.
I think
I could.
This is just a shot in the dark from my own like research into it. I think they're supposed to be protecting them from Sauron's influence, because I'm pretty sure Sauron tried going to the elves first to try and manipulate them into helping him make the rings, and then he went to Celebrimbor, and he tried going to the dwarfs, but the dwarfs saw right through him, and then he went to Celebrimbor. He went to a different tribe of elves and was just like, oh yeah, help me, I'm a forge master or whatever. All of that was very condensed for the Rings of Power, but as far as like what the elven rings do, because I think it's just to I think it's just to add a layer of protection against Sauron. I think. I could be completely wrong about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And it makes sense because it would be protecting her even now from that.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the book, her ring is useless. After they destroy the One Ring of Power, I think her ring, she doesn't need it anymore. It's not needed, and it kind of fades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it just becomes an artifact, a token.
Yeah.
a thing that used to have power imbued in it that doesn't have it anymore. Because it had one use, which was repelling his influence, his evil.
Yeah, which kind of is weird because it kind of gives a sentience to everything. You know what I mean? Like the ring is sentient, the One Ring is sentient, Nenya is sentient. They give it a name.
Yeah.
They literally give inanimate objects names because everything has some level of life and value to it. Nothing is really wasted.
Yeah, like a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with swords. They name all the swords and stuff. Yeah.
Yep, they name all the swords, and I think that just is another reason why seeing the destruction of like where, Saruman is even more hurtful, because everything has value. Everything has life, from the rocks to the trees to the mountains,
Yeah, totally. And then she ends the conversation by saying, even the smallest person can change the course of the future. Yeah. And so, then we cut to one of my apps. So, we had been sort of cutting back and forth to Isengard, where we're seeing them building this army. And so one of the things we saw was they have basically a birthing, I don't know what you call a birthing chamber where they are getting the Uruk-hai out of the ground.
Yeah.
After they've, I guess it's sort of like a spawning pit or a breeding pit is probably what you could call it as well. And we're seeing,
there's it's kind of, I always felt like it was kind of implied that it was magic without seeing the magic happen, if that makes any sense. But I think in the book, they're actually it's pretty fucking messed up. I'm not.
It's some dark stuff that they're doing. They're taking elves or whatever, some other stuff, and they're fucking with them with magic. And
they allude to the fact that orcs and Uruk-hai used to be elves that were corrupted, and you kind of see a little bit of that happening in Rings of Power, which is actually kind of interesting in my opinion.
Yeah.
You only kind of see the end result. You never really see the process happening. Not that you really want to see it. It's pretty gross. But yeah, it's seeing at least them showing a little bit of that in Rings of Power was, I think, helpful. But in Lord of the Rings, you kind of just see the end result of them just getting cut out of these sacks and shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really
which
gross.
Is really gross, but very.
It can also just be the magic without seeing the magic spell happen too, kind of a thing.
And so then Sauron gives this, basically to the leader of the Uruks, this great. I fucking love this scene. So he says to him, "Do you know how the Orcs force came into being? They were elves once, taken by the dark powers, tortured and mutilated, a ruined and terrible form of life, and now perfected, my fighting Uruk-hai. Whom do you serve?" And dude says, "Saruman." And we see the army.
Indoctrination right there.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, the Uruk-hai are orcs. So they're elves that got messed up and turned into orcs, and then that got messed up with dark forces and dark magic and became mutilated into Uruk-hai. But the Uruk-hai are the Uruk-hai are they're like Marines, or no, I wouldn't even say they're like Navy SEALs,
special forces, Navy SEAls, Black Ops shit.
Yeah, they are very efficient. They are really big. They're very strong and physical. They we see them do these long marches and long like when he sends them out to get the ring, they run for
days.
Miles? Yeah, days, miles.
And they can move in daylight. better.
Yeah, and they move in daylight. Like they are an elite force. Um, and they're very deadly. And so yeah, Saruman sends them off to go find the hobbits. Now, what's interesting here? So he says, bring the halflings to me unspoiled. And so this was like a whole thing that we kind of get into a little bit. But basically, Saruman wanted to get the ring for himself.
Yes, it's not as overt as it is, I think, in the books. I think in the books it's a little more obvious that he has his own agenda. He thinks he's using Sauron, and he's really not. Like,
yeah. I can kind of see it. It makes sense because like their armies are very different. Sauron's army and Saruman's army. Saruman's army is these Uruk-hai who are super elite. Like basically, he has, 50,000 or whatever Navy SEALs, super trained, extremely surgical, and Sauron has a bunch of goblins and orcs who are like kind of rabble. They're not as well trained, they're not as well organized, but there's a ton of them. He has a ton of them, and they all just totally are supplicants to him. They'll do whatever he wants because he is the ultimate power. So, but Saruman is like more strategic. Like he thinks he's like thinking things through, a little bit more arrogant, basically.
Yeah, very arrogant.
So yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. Like why it's a subtle point, but he wants the ring brought back to him because he wants to use it. He wants to become God,
Yeah.
So the Galadriel gives everybody these gifts. She gives she gives Frodo like a star, like the light of a star in a jar.
Not just any star. Like, do you know about who's like that's like a person in that jar? Like that's literally the soul of like the coolest I think it's Elrond's dad. Elrond's dad or grandfather or some shit. He's like a boatmaster in the sky. It's like it's some intense shit. Like
it's some intense shit.
When you find out what that little jar or that little bottle is, it's like
what?
That's like the most powerful weapon next to the ring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like that is some intense shit.
Yeah.
The light of Elendil or something?
The light of Elendil, I believe. Yep. Yeah. Our brightest star?
Something our most beloved star.
Our most beloved star, yeah.
Like this ain't no other fucking star. That's the star. It's like shit. Yeah.
So let's see. Sam gets that rope, right? A rope that'll never break. Legolas gets a bow. Some other people get like daggers, knives, other things like that. Gimli gets a piece of her hair.
But that's really significant from what I understand. I guess there was some like douchey elf who was like kept begging Galadriel like thousands of years ago for like a strand of her hair to like put inside like what are they called?
Oh. You want something to preserve it and like look at it or something?
No, it was the it's the name of the book. It's like
the book that Bilbo was writing, or
no,
the book that
it's it's like a book of short stories, but it's not. It's like these little things that Morgoth really wanted, and he ended up getting them, and he put them in a thing. Whatever, it doesn't matter, I guess.
Interesting. Okay, it's like a book of fables or something, or like a book of
kind of. I think I don't remember.
Stories.
Anyway, but yeah, some douchey elf wanted Galadriel's hair, and she's like, "No, you're not worthy." Yeah. So it's really significant when she gives Gimli.
She gives it to him. Yeah.
Not just one strand of her hair, but 3.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it even cuts to Legolas like smirking, like he knows the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool. And so they, they're gonna float down the river on their boats. So in a couple of extended scenes, so like, the husband, what was his name? The husband's name? Celeborn. Yeah. Celeborn tells Aragorn, like, hey, dude, so our intelligence is saying that they have raised an army and they're sending people. They're coming for you. So you guys got to be quick. And this is where they're moving. And so basically they know, okay, they're coming this way. Another scene. So Boromir is like, he's Boromir just like has these kind of like bad bouts of stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like
Bad
he'll be,
ideas, yeah.
yeah. So like he's like he says because basically Aragorn becomes the leader of their group at this point now that Gandalf is dead, and so then they're taking a different route to get to Mordor. And Boromir's like, no, we have to go to Gondor. We have to do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, and you won't do it because you don't believe in human beings anymore. You hate us. Why don't you do it? We still have strength, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, shut the hell up. I would not take the ring within 100 leagues of your city. Now shut up, sit down, and stop being crazy. Okay, you know this is a bad idea.
I don't trust you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they're going down this river, and they come across these massive statues.
Yeah, which are pretty cool.
So fucking cool. They're so fucking cool.
Yeah, if you look like closely, there's a bird on one of the eyes, but it looks like a pupil watching them before it flies away. But it's also, I think, a familiar. Keeping an eye on them. Yeah. Interesting. And so also, I think it's Legolas starts having these kind of like, because like he can hear the Uruk coming, and they do this really cool thing where he like looks over, and then like one of the Uruk like looks in his. They share the same eye line, and I think there's some night or something. They're like, "Hey, dude, like we're being tracked. We're being tracked. Like they're coming for us. I don't know what it is, but it's like it's a dark presence is coming." So, and then they're like, so he says that, and they're like, "Oh, dude, where's Frodo? Where is he?" And he's gone. And so he's like wandering off or whatever. Boromir's like, "Hey, you shouldn't like wander off. You know, get lost." And he's like getting firewood. Yeah, someone with a negative agenda might like come across you or something. I don't know. Not me.
Yeah.
I have all of the good intentions.
And Boromir's like, "What are you doing? Like, where are you going?" He's like, "Oh, you were gonna take it to him, weren't you?" And then he has this whole thing. He tries to fucking take the ring from him.
He tries to kill him.
Yeah. Makes all these accusations.
Boromir was going to kill him. I was thinking he was definitely going to kill him. And Frodo's right. Like, you're not acting like yourself, dude. Which is actually kind of funny because he's acting completely within character, in my opinion.
A little bit. I do think there's a distinction between. I think it's corrupted him. I think that he's the type of person who is easily corruptible. But even in the scene, like you see that once Frodo runs away, he has a totally different. It's almost like someone like if they took a drug or something that like brought out the worst in them, and then they could immediately have it turned off. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh fuck, what did I do?"
No, he immediately feels regret for what he did. Like as soon as like Frodo kicks him in the face and like runs away, he's like, "Oh, I've messed up big time." Yeah. And he even says, "I'm sorry." Like he's crying.
He's crying. He's
on his knees crying. Like that wasn't him.
Yeah. Like, and what's so interesting is like. He's such a great character to show like how easily someone can be corrupted, but it doesn't make you bad.
Yes, exactly. He's not evil. He's not evil. He's easily corrupted, yes, but that doesn't make a person that doesn't make someone evil.
Yeah, like, exactly. He's still good. It's just like, I mean, this is the most evil force.
Yeah, it makes
probably that this world has ever seen.
Exactly. It's imbued with the evil of the most evil person that's ever lived. Like. The fact that he's the only one that's kind of like visibly showing his like ticking about it is kind of.
But they all have it. Yeah.
But they all have it exactly, except maybe Legolas. Legolas doesn't really seem all that interested in it at all. But...
Yeah, Legolas is a really interesting character because like he's very standoffish. Like he never talks.
Stoic.
He says one line to Frodo, and it's in this movie, and he says, "You'll have my bow." Like that's it. He never talks. To him. Like he's very like I feel like he's like secretly sort of elitist, but he's not like super out about his feelings about people.
I don't know if it's necessarily that. I feel like he's probably just seen a lot and doesn't want to get attached either. Like
yes, I agree with that.
Like there is a moment though in Two Towers when he's like speaking in Elvish to Aragorn, and he's like, "They're all gonna die." But it's not necessarily. I think it's because he thinks these are lives that are going to be wasted. Like this isn't fair to them. Like they're old men and children. Mm-hmm. Like what are they going to do? Like they can't, because he's right. They can't fight properly. They're ill-equipped. They're old. They're young. They're scared, and
they're outnumbered.
And they're
Massively.
outnumbered, and Legolas is feeling probably pretty jaded about that right now.
And I think in that moment too, he's basically telling Aragorn, we should leave because you're more important. But he's really saying you're more important than these people. You're more important, and you should leave and live and become king and forget these people. You know, like that's why Aragorn like reacts very strongly, negatively. Yeah. Which is sort of important for him, but. Yeah, like the Legolas character is very interesting because he's very stoic. He doesn't say a lot. He really is there only, I think, for Aragorn. He's there to help Aragorn. They're very good friends.
Yes.
And he wants to see him become king, and he wants to see him to the end of his journey.
Yeah, because I think Legolas probably has a very strong compass when it comes to fairness as well. Like, no, it's and what is right, and for what is right is that Aragorn should take his birthright, and that you are the only man for the job, basically.
Exactly. So, Frodo puts on the ring to get away from Boromir. He's running, and he gets onto some kind of like little, I don't know what we call that thing, some little like kind of structure that they built. Yeah, it's almost like they created a little platform for people to like view the mountain. And he then sees the eye, and I mean, this. The way they depict this scene is like so cool because it's such a like cosmic horror kind of thing. It's like he's there, he's looking at something, and then the perspective almost shifts. It's almost like Sauron bridges the gap of space between himself and Frodo to bring himself right up to the eye, and he like sees it.
Yeah, it's almost like Sauron's really there. Like, and I almost feel like he is, because from what I understand, when Frodo puts on the ring, he's almost like in this weird in-between land where not time and space, but where, like you were saying, perspective shifts, and they're in like this weird in-between place where they are near each other, So it's almost like Sauron really does appear. It's not just an illusion. It's not just because it's all freaky deaky or some shit. It's because they're actually existing within the same plane of existence with each other. Yeah. And that's terrifying.
It's super terrifying.
That's so terrifying. And even the way the eye moves, it's almost like it's walking towards him, like or floating or whatever.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And then so he takes the ring off. Aragorn's there. He's like, "Where's the ring?" And basically he's like, "Would you take it?" And he's like, "No, I won't. But I would have followed you to the end."
Yeah, I think he would have. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Frodo. Well, he looks at Frodo's blade and it's turning blue, and so he's like, "Oh shit, they're coming! They're here!
It's like, you gotta go, bro.
Yeah, like run, and he runs off. And this is a really cool shot. Like you see Frodo running, and they're wearing these little green capes. Another thing that they got was these, like it's a cape of invisibility, right?
I don't know if it's necessarily invisible, but it definitely hides you. It can probably, because in Two Towers, I think he covers him in Sam, and it kind of takes the shape of a rock. So maybe it takes, maybe it's more like a chameleon where it takes on the color and texture of whatever it is near.
It has a magical property for sure.
For sure.
And we see him running away, and we see Aragorn like with his sword taking on 1,000 dudes are just coming at him.
It's a lot. It's a lot of Uruk-hai.
And then we get the next big battle scene in this film, and so they're fighting. Gimli and Legolas show up. Boromir is running around. All the other hobbits are kind of scattered. At some point, the hobbits, Merry and Pippin see Frodo across the way, and he's like, "Hey, come over here!" And he's like, "No, I'm not going to." And then Merry gets it, but Pippin doesn't.
Yeah.
And so then Merry kind of creates a distraction. It's like, hey, we're over here. They do that classic thing. And so
the orcs don't know which hobbit it is. They just know it's a hobbit. So it's just
they said, find the halfling. There are two halflings right there, and they grab them. Yep. They go after them, and Boromir intervenes to sort of help them, and because a dude was gonna hack at one of the two of them with an axe.
Something
catches,
like that, yeah.
He catches the axe in the air, he kills the guy, and he starts blowing the horn of Gondor. And everyone gets drawn to him because of that. And so there's all this fighting, and we see, Legolas and Gimli and all these guys, and there's some really cool stuff. We see Legolas, he stabs someone with an arrow. He then takes that arrow out and then shoots the arrow at someone or something like that. I think he
why
kills
throw
2
away a
people with an arrow.
Good arrow, man. Like,
Yeah. Some really
reduce,
impressive
reuse,
stuff.
Recycle.
Yeah. Gimli throws some what is it, like axes or stuff like that at people. It's really cool fight scene. Boromir does not make it. I mean, Boromir, he gets shot with 3 arrows, 4 arrows,
4
from
arrows,
this guy?
yeah.
And again, the
Almost
way
got
they
another one to the forehead too, which must sucked.
Yeah, he was gonna finish him off. The way that I love what they do with this bow because it just feels really powerful. Like the way that the sound of it crocking back, it sounds brutal. It sounds really brutal.
Yeah.
So he kind of falls in battle, but Aragorn saves him from getting shot in the head, and he fights with basically there is a name for this Uruk-hai guy, but I forget what the name is. And they're fighting, and it's
brutal. He fucks up Aragorn a bit. It's pretty evenly matched. In fact, I think Aragorn would have died because he like gets him with the shield at one point and gonna hack his head off.
Yeah, he was gonna hack his head off. Because like even when Aragorn cuts off his arm, I think he cuts off like part of his leg or something like that, and like the guy he stabs him in the stomach, and the guy's like whatever, and he pulls him in.
Yeah, he pulls the sword even closer, and Aragorn's freaked out. He's like, "This is nothing I've ever fought before."
Yeah, and it's to cut his head off, and then he even has this look when he's like, "Fuck." Like,
he's limping.
Yeah,
he's freaking limping at one point.
Yeah.
And just props to Viggo Mortensen when the actor Uruk-hai threw the knife at him. Like, he really dodged that. Like, that wasn't planned. Like, he really knocked that shit away. And you can hear the sound of the metal clanking against each other. I'm like, oh, fuck.
It's a great sound. It's great.
Hi, puppy.
Yeah. And so then he kind of consoles Boromir as he's dying, and they have this whole thing, and he's like, he calls him my captain, my king. And like it's like the first moment where Aragorn really starts to move to like accepting that responsibility.
Yeah.
And accepting taking on that role of being king of all of humanity, which is like a big fucking deal when you actually say that, but that's what it is.
Yeah, Boromir's mask is gone now. Like, he's dying. He doesn't have to save face for the sake of his father's name anymore or anything like that. He's just like, he's not putting up a front. He's just like, no, I'm dying, and like, this is how I really feel, by the way. Like,
and he even says something like what happened to Frodo is like, I let him go, and it's like, oh, you're better than I did, or something. He said, basically he says, you did what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
And he says they took the little ones, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
He was trying to save
because,
them.
like you said, he cared a lot about them. Like he cared about them when they were on the mountain pass and they're freezing, and he's like, dude, they're gonna die.
He caught Frodo out of thin air.
Yeah, he catches him. Yeah,
like he cared a lot. Like,
yeah, he did, and then he dies, and they put him in his horn on a boat, and they let him fall down that waterfall. Sam tries to get to Frodo. Like, Frodo's in the boat, and he's like, I'm going to Mordor by myself. Sam's like, of course you are, and I'm coming with you. That's what he says.
Yeah.
He's like, Sam, you can't swim. Don't get in the water. And he gets in the water, and it's like he's gonna drown. And last second, Frodo gets him.
But friendship prevails.
Yeah. So they basically Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn are watching them get across to the other side of the lake, and Legolas is like, hey, we gotta go catch him, and Aragorn's like, we're gonna let him go. And they're like, damn, like, did the Fellowship fail? And it's like a really kind of down moment. They're like, there's still one thing we can do. We can save Merry and Pippin, and that's what we need to do. We need to go hunt the Uruk-hai. We'll travel light. And Gimli's like, yes. And they go running off to go save the two of them, and basically the last thing we see is Sam and Frodo kind of going on their journey together and seeing Mordor way off in the distance.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Like, the visuals are just so stunning. You have this contrast of where they're coming from, which is like green and lush and beautiful, and then it's just red and black and gray and smoke and poisonous fumes. And yeah, I mean, you can't wander around a volcano nowadays without like a suit on, so they're going in there with nothing.
I had saved this video. I was just like going through a bunch of stuff that I bookmarked on Twitter before it gets destroyed by Elon Musk. And I was just downloading a bunch of like videos and stuff. I had this video where it was people, they were up on a volcano and it erupts.
Oh
And
yeah,
I mean,
I've heard that. Yeah.
the sound that thing made, like, oh my God.
The fact that
And
anyone survived that is utterly insane. Like,
yeah,
I was listening to a podcast about it, and they only played the audio because it was a podcast, and I was like, I can't watch that. Like, listening to it was so.
yeah, the one I saw, I
horrific.
don't think it was the same thing, because it seemed like there were a lot of people, like, very kind of, I wouldn't say touristy people, but like the type of people who like climb mountains and shit. Like, there was a lot of them there. If this was not a major explosion of this volcano, but it was an eruption. There was an eruption, and you can see the magma falling to the ground, and people are like, oh, I think we should maybe back away because this magma is falling right now and it could fall on us.
Yeah, I think this might have been different. The one I was listening to was like they were like in it, like they were like right next to it, and people did live, but I think that it was for like some kind of like tourist company. They were on a cruise or something, and they were like, oh, let's go look at this volcano. It hasn't erupted in ever or something. And she knows I'm on a video call, so that's why she
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like it erupted. There was this guy with his 2 daughters, and he managed to save them, but unfortunately died. And yeah, there's a lot of lawsuits from that one, I think. So, but yeah, I like staying away from them.
Yeah, and I don't think that they don't make a huge point of this, but it's there visually. Like, these things must exist in darkness. And they make a point of that in the third film, where like before Minas Morgul was going to invade Minas Tirith, they sent this cloud out. They extended the cloud over the city that they were going to invade, because they need to have that cover of darkness to.
Yep.
So yeah, Mordor is a place that is literally and figuratively dark.
Yeah, it's despair. There's no hope there. It's there to break you.
Yeah. Okay, so any thoughts on this film? Any parting things you want to say about it?
I love it. It was a really wonderful introduction for me to love this franchise. You know, I will be the first person to admit I've never read the books, but you know, I try to educate myself as much as possible on like everything that's going on, because I think it's important, and it honestly helps add a level of context to certain things that make way more sense now, but still get the point across in the movie. You know, I would recommend this franchise to anyone. Like
100%. Yeah, I really like there's a lot of things about this film that I really like a lot. I think, you know, I feel like there's some, I guess the way I would put it is, I don't think there's a bad film in this trilogy.
No, I don't think so either, and like, that's really hard to accomplish.
Yeah, and they're all really, really good. There's a lot of, I feel like there was a time where it was like people like, oh well, you know, like Two Towers is like kind of not the best, but I think even Two Towers, there's a lot of really great stuff in that film. I feel like the Fellowship of the Ring is probably the one I've watched the most, because you know it's the first, and there's so many scenes that I really, really like about it. There's a real sense of adventure in it, especially those scenes in the Moria when the Fellowship is together. It's really adventurous, and it's probably, and it's also, I think it's the shortest. I think even extended to the shortest, because that third film is really long.
Yeah, the third film is very, very long.
It's really long. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this film. Like, it's so amazing. It's just so fortunate to, like, you know, you just realize, like, and people take it for granted, like, this film is unbelievable, and they don't make films like this anymore. I mean, really, in the history of cinema, there are very few films like this. The scale, what they did, the world building, the actual physical building of stuff and sets that they did. It's incredible. It's incredible.
No, it's a masterclass, in my opinion. Yeah. It's a real masterclass. I don't think there's a dud in the trilogy. I don't think I have a favorite personally. I just like watching it all back to back. I can't watch one without the other. It's like when I try and watch the first, like, you know, Star Trek movies. I have to watch Wrath of Khan. I have to watch Search for Spock. What the fuck's the next one? The next one after that. I can't remember at the moment. But I have to watch them all together, because it just, they all tell a very cohesive story with one another, and they all fit very well together, because one ends and the other one's already beginning. You know what I mean? Like, we open, I think, with Sam and Frodo again in the second one. No, did we? I don't remember.
I think it's the fight with the I believe that's what it is. Yeah, it's the fight with Gandalf fighting the
Oh yeah,
Balrog.
that's how it is. But it's still it's still a pickup.
It is.
And yeah, I highly recommend it, and I think it's a good introduction to fantasy. If you're not sure where to start, just start with if fantasy as far as films go. Starting with the ones in the 80s can be fun, but it's a freaking trip.
Yeah, this is truly like just the absolute height of, in terms of cinema, like because the technology was there. I mean, we really haven't seen much of Gollum. We're going to see a lot more Gollum in the next film. Gollum was just incredible what they did.
Yeah, Gollum was incredible. He looks amazing in The Hobbit. Like there's a moment where it's on Gollum's face and he's just like thinking about a riddle that Bilbo just told him, and his like just his eyes and his face and just like the minute little details that they're able to capture.
I mean, Andy Serkis is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I say this every time we talk about Andy Serkis. He should have won an Oscar a long time ago, in my opinion. Like he should have won multiple Oscars.
I mean, to be honest, there should basically be a category, and they should call it, and the Andy Serkis Award for motion capture performance goes to.
No, for real, there should be an entire award for him. Like I think there should be awards for stunt doubles. Like I think there's a lot of people who deserve recognition that don't always get it in productions.
There should be best stunt person, best stunt team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it should absolutely be a thing. I think people don't want to do that sometimes. It's kind of like when people don't give recognition to good horror movies that deserve like recognition. It's kind of like that snobbery. It's a real snob. That's elitist to me. Is like this just a snob. Oh, you're just a stunt person. Like you're just you were in a motion capture suit. You weren't really acting. And like that, he has to work harder than anybody else. Actually, so
totally, they have no fucking clue.
Yeah, it's just there's a level of snobbery to it, but the Oscars are full of snobs anyway.
So yeah, I think that covers our thoughts.
4 hours, yeah.
Been a long one, yeah. I mean, part of that was like just talking about getting to making this film. How much of a miracle it is that we got the films in the way that we got. I mean, it's just so much better. And you know, there were even people who were talking about, because like the book itself is actually each what we consider a book is actually 2 books. So like the Fellowship of the Ring is 2 books. The Two Towers is 2 books. The Return of the King is 2 books. And so some people were saying there should be 6 films.
Oh my God.
Not 3 films. But
they're just being greedy, man. Now you're just being greedy.
Yeah, basically. I mean, to be totally fair, and what's so funny about it is like once people realize with like the Lord, you know, all these franchises, that there was a built-in audience and there was none of this fear, because a lot of what we were talking about in the lead up of like all the risk was that they were afraid that there wasn't an audience for these types of films. But once it was proven to be true, they were like, make 6, because then with Harry Potter, they started this thing of like, oh, we'll take the final part of the story and split it in half. So they effectively did that. They effectively did what people were kind of asking for in a way.
Yeah, and you know what, they had to honestly, I feel like they had to split the last book into 2 movies because there's so much going on in that book. It's just
that last Harry Potter book. They did that too with Twilight. They did that also with what was the other one?
I mean, it's definitely a way of making more money, but at the same time, it's just like there's so much going on. Like you want to tell a good story in a minimal amount of runtime. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult. But yeah, again, that's why these movies are just like an absolute miracle. I mean, what they did is unbelievable. It's unbelievable what they did. It's just so daunting of a task. I mean, Dune, right? Like think about Dune. It was like we're all thinking, oh yeah, the Dune movie, Dune Part 1.
That's just part 1, yeah.
That's part 1.
But thank God Peter Jackson, he got the ball rolling on a lot of these things. I don't think we would have. I mean, we had the made-for-TV Dunes, but we know that we knew that they weren't good. We knew that.
He set a blueprint, right? I mean, he really set a blueprint. This is how you can do it. This is how and we have the technology. We can make it. We can do it.
Better, faster, stronger.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I'm so, and like really, this made him a household name. This made him a huge A-list director.
I think he probably got a lot of people interested in making movies too. Yeah. You know, like I think he inspired a lot of people to just, you know, to be interested in like writing and filmmaking, and even if you're just interested in the theory of filmmaking, like that's pretty cool too. Like that's what I love about movies, is like what goes into making a movie, what makes a story compelling is what I care about. And sometimes you can find it even in the crappiest of movies. If you can find just one little compelling thing, I think then that's kind of saved it for me.
Yeah, no, totally. Because there's just so much beauty and depth and things to appreciate in these films.
Yeah.
There's just so much great stuff there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, I'll leave you with the last word on this before we say goodbye.
What kind of last word?
Oh, whatever you want to say. If you want to say something about the film, probably.
I don't really know. I don't really have much else. I think I'm good. I think
cool.
I think they're great movies, and you should definitely check them out.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did a 4K re-release of them recently. They're phenomenal. The transfer was phenomenal. They look great, shot on film. So yeah, it all looks amazing. So thanks a lot, everybody. And at some point in the future, next thing we're gonna do is the Two Towers, the second film in this trilogy. And until then, take care, and may the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.